The room is still, bathed in the faint grey light that comes just before the dawn. Outside, the world is quiet, lost in its slumber, but inside you, there is a wakefulness. It is not the restless energy of a night without sleep, but a deeper kind of stirring, a quiet question that hangs in the silence of your home. The children are grown, their own lives, a distant hum of activity, the long decades of work, of schedules and responsibilities, of a purpose, defined by a title on a door, have receded into the past, like a shoreline, slowly disappearing from view. And in the profound quiet of this new chapter, a single thought echoes. What now? This is not a question of panic, but one of immense, and perhaps unsettling, space. It is the feeling of standing at the edge of a vast open field after having navigated a dense forest for a lifetime. The path behind is clear, well trodden, but the path ahead is unwritten, a blank page after a long and detailed book. This feeling, this quiet ache of uncertainty, is not a personal failure. It is a universal threshold. It is the natural anxiety that comes with confronting time itself, with feeling the subtle shifts in a body that has carried you so faithfully, with searching for a sense of self when the familiar roles of professional, of parent, of provider have softened and changed. The goals that once drove you, the accumulation of things, the climbing of ladders, they seem to offer little comfort now. Their promises feel hollow in the face of this deep, existential quiet. But the answer to this quiet is not to fill it with noise, not to rush into a flurry of new activities, simply to avoid the emptiness. The answer lies in turning towards it, in exploring its depths. This is an invitation to learn a new way of seeing, a way offered by the ancient wisdom of Zen, not as a complex religion with rules to follow, but as a gentle art of looking deeply into the nature of reality. It is a path that teaches us how to transform that feeling of empty silence into a profound and fulfilling stillness. It shows us how to turn the ache of anxiety into the calm of acceptance, and how to discover a meaning that is not found in what you do, but in who you are, in the simple, sacred act of being. It is a journey inward to find a peace that does not depend on anything outside of yourself, a peace that is waiting for you in the quiet heart of this very moment. We begin our journey with a simple, yet profoundly challenging truth, a word from the ancient Pali language, anicca. It translates to impermanence. It is the universal law that all things are in a state of flux, that everything that arises must also pass away. To the Western mind, conditioned to seek stability, to build lasting legacies, to find a solid ground on which to stand, this idea can feel threatening. It can feel like the very foundation of our reality is being revealed as shifting sand. We spend our lives striving for permanence. We build homes of brick and stone. We write our names on plaques. We accumulate wealth to create a sense of security. We build an identity, a story of who we are, hoping it will endure. And for a long time, it seems to work. But as the years pass, especially as we cross the threshold of 60, we begin to feel the undeniable current of anicca more acutely. The solid ground beneath our feet reveals itself to be a raft, adrift on a vast and ceaseless ocean of change. Think of your life not as a series of photographs in an album, static moments frozen in time, but as a continuously flowing river. When we are young, we are swept up in its rapids, full of energy and forward momentum. In midlife, we work tirelessly to build dams, to create reservoirs of certainty, a career, a reputation, a family structure. We tell ourselves, this is it. This is who I am. This is my life. We try to arrest the flow, but the river never stops. It wears away at our dams. It finds new channels. It continues its inexorable journey to the sea. The great suffering of human life comes not from the river's flow, but from our resistance to it. We stand on the bank, yearning for the water that has already passed, for the face we had at 30, for the strength we had at 40, for the role we had at 50. We exhaust ourselves trying to hold back the past. Or we stand anxiously, staring downstream, trying to predict the currents ahead, fearing the rocks and waterfalls of illness, loss, and our own mortality. We are so rarely present in the river itself, feeling the water on our skin, moving with the current as it is, right here, right now. This resistance, this clinging, is the source of so much of our quiet distress. We cling to a memory of our health, and so we resent the new aches and pains of a body that has served us for over 6 decades. We cling to the identity of being a vital part of a workforce, and so we feel a sense of aimlessness in the open days of retirement. We cling to our role as a central figure in our children's lives, and we feel a pang of loneliness when their worlds become busy and distant. This clinging is a form of tension, a constant, low-level argument with reality. It is saying to the universe, I do not accept what is. It is like trying to hold a fistful of water. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers, leaving you with nothing but an aching hand. The past is a memory, a ghost that we feed with our attention. The future is a fantasy, a projection of our hopes and fears. Neither is real. The only reality is the gentle, or sometimes turbulent, flow of this present moment. And in this moment, impermanence is not our enemy. It is simply the nature of things. But here is the secret, the profound gift hidden within this seemingly harsh law. If everything is impermanent, then our suffering is also impermanent. The deep sadness you may feel today, the wave of loneliness that can wash over you in a quiet afternoon, the sharp anxiety that might wake you in the pre-dawn hours. These too are anicca. They are not permanent fixtures of your being. They are weather patterns of the mind, clouds that drift across the vast sky of your awareness. They arise, they stay for a while, and if you allow them to, they will pass. Resisting them, hating them, fearing them, is what gives them power and longevity. But observing them with a quiet, knowing mind, understanding that this too shall pass, is the beginning of freedom. This truth doesn't just apply to our pain, it also imbues our joy with a unique and precious quality. Because a sunset is fleeting, we cherish its vibrant colors. Because a conversation with a loved one is a moment in time, we listen more deeply. Because a flower's bloom is temporary, we are struck by its fragile beauty. Impermanence is what makes life precious. It calls us to be present, to pay attention, because this moment, in this exact form, will never come again. There is a powerful story that illustrates this truth with heartbreaking clarity. It is the story of a young mother named Kisa Gautami. Her life was filled with joy, for she had a beautiful baby son. But one day, tragedy struck, and the child fell ill and died. Kisa Gautami was consumed by a grief so powerful, it bordered on madness. She refused to accept that her son was gone. She picked up his small body and wandered from house to house, from neighbor to neighbor, begging for medicine that could bring him back to life. Some pitied her, some mocked her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise man saw her desperate state and suggested she go see the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded for the miracle she so desperately craved. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion. He did not dismiss her. He said, "I can help you, But first, you must do something for me. I need you to bring me a single mustard seed." Kisa Gautami's hope surged. A mustard seed was a simple thing to find. But then, the Buddha added a condition. You must bring the seed from a home where no one has ever died. Not a child, not a spouse, not a parent, not a servant. Filled with renewed purpose, she began her quest. She went to the first house, her heart pounding. "The Buddha has sent me," she explained. "I need a mustard seed to cure my son. Have you known death in this house?" The woman of the house looked at her sadly. "I have. I lost my father just last year." Kisa Gautami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was always the same. "We have plenty of mustard seeds," they would say. "But here we lost a sister. Here we lost our mother. Here the living are few, but the dead are many." She went to every home in the village, and then to the villages beyond. As the day wore on, the weight of her dead son in her arms seemed to be matched by a new weight in her heart, the weight of shared sorrow. She knocked on every door, and at every door, she was met with the inescapable truth of human loss. Finally, as evening fell, the understanding dawned on her. There was no house, no family that had not been touched by the hand of death. Her own grief, which had felt so singular, so isolating, was in fact the universal inheritance of all beings. It was not her private tragedy, but a shared thread in the vast tapestry of life. With this profound realization, she carried her son to the cremation ground and let him go. She then returned to the Buddha, not with a mustard seed in her hand, but with a quiet acceptance in her heart. She had understood the great law of anicca, not as a cruel punishment, but as the fundamental nature of existence. This understanding is the first step on our path. To see the world and our own lives, not as a collection of solid, separate things, but as a dynamic, interconnected process of becoming and unbecoming. When we can look at the changes in our bodies, in our relationships, in our world, and whisper to ourselves, "Anicca, this is the nature of things," a great burden begins to lift. We stop fighting the river. We begin, ever so slightly, to flow with it. But this leads us to an even deeper question. If my body is always changing, if my thoughts are a fleeting parade, if my feelings are as unpredictable as the weather, then who or what is the I that is witnessing all of this? If everything is impermanent, is myself the one exception? This is where our journey takes us next, into the heart of an even more radical and liberating truth. Having accepted the ceaseless river of impermanence, anicca, we now arrive at its most intimate and challenging implication. We have seen how everything around us changes, but we have held on to one last fortress of perceived stability, one final anchor in the storm. That anchor is the idea of me. We think, the world may change, my body may age, but I, the one who is witnessing it all, I remain. This is the central story of our lives, the narrative of a singular, continuous self that was born, that has lived, and that will one day die. Today, we are invited to look at this story with gentle curiosity. We are invited to explore the second great mark of existence in Buddhist thought, the concept of anatta, or no self. This idea may sound frightening, like an erasure of our very being, but it is not about annihilation. It is about liberation. It is the profound relief of taking off a heavy, constricting mask that we have worn for so long. We have mistaken it for our own face. Let us begin by asking a simple question. Who are you? Where is this self located? You might first point to your body, but is that you? The body you have today, is not the body you had as a child or as a young adult. Every cell has been replaced many times over. The physical form is in a constant state of flux, a living testament to anicca. It is a temporary vessel, a precious vehicle for this life's journey, but it is not a permanent, unchanging you. So perhaps you think the self is in the mind, but what is the mind? Is it your thoughts? Thoughts are like clouds passing in the sky. They appear from nowhere, linger for a moment, and vanish. You can have a happy thought, then a sad thought, then an anxious thought, all within a few minutes. Are you all of them? Or are you the silent, spacious awareness in which these thoughts appear? You are not the thought. You are the sky, not the cloud. Perhaps then, the self is your collection of memories, your personal history. But memories are notoriously fickle. They are not perfect recordings of the past. They are reconstructions, colored by our current moods and beliefs. They shift, they fade. Important details are forgotten. Others are embellished. Furthermore, you exist, right now, in this moment of hearing these words, without actively summoning a single memory from your past. Your existence does not depend on your memory of it. So what is left? Your name, your roles, a mother, a father, a doctor, a teacher, a friend. These are labels, useful conventions for navigating the world, but they are not the essence of who you are. The role of active professional may have ended. The role of parent to young children has evolved. If your identity was entirely fused with those labels, who are you now that they have changed? The truth that anatta points to is that the self we believe to be so solid is in fact a verb, not a noun. It is a process, not a thing. It is a temporary, ever-changing combination of physical form, fleeting feelings, shifting perceptions, mental habits, and a flowing stream of consciousness. There is no permanent CEO sitting in the headquarters of your mind, no unchanging soul pulling the levers. There is just the process of life, unfolding, moment by moment. The self is a story we tell ourselves to make sense of this flow, a useful story, but a story nonetheless. And this story, this belief in a solid, separate self, or ego, is the source of so much of our deepest suffering. Because this me feels separate, it feels vulnerable, it needs to be defended. When someone says a harsh word, it is not just a sound, it is an attack on me. And so I must feel hurt, I must become angry, I must defend my honor. When we are stuck in traffic, it is not just an inconvenience, it is a personal affront to my time and my plans. This constant need to protect and defend the ego is utterly exhausting. This me also lives in a state of constant comparison. It looks at others and asks, am I better or worse? Do I have more or less? This comparison is the seed of jealousy, envy, pride, and insecurity. We get caught in judging my life, my successes, my legacy against an imagined standard set by others. And perhaps most profoundly, this constructed self is terrified of its own non-existence. The fear of death is, at its core, the ego's fear of its story coming to an end. After 60, this prison of the ego can feel particularly confining. For decades, the ego may have built its identity on the strong foundations of a career, social standing, or physical prowess. When retirement comes, when the body softens, when society's focus shifts to a younger generation, the ego can feel like its fortress is crumbling. The sense of, I am a retired person, can feel like a profound loss, a diminishment from, I was a CEO, or I was a nurse. We feel we have lost a part of ourselves, when in fact, we have only lost a label, a temporary mask. The invitation of anatta is to see that you were never just the mask. The liberation comes when we begin to gently loosen our grip on this story of me. This does not mean you cease to exist. It means you begin to exist in a much larger, more peaceful, and more connected way. When there is no rigid self to defend, the harsh words of another are no longer a personal attack. You can see them for what they are, perhaps an expression of that person's own pain, their own suffering. Your heart, freed from the duty of self-defense, can now open with compassion. The relentless need to compare falls away. You can find genuine joy in the success of others, because the illusion of separation has begun to fade. The loneliness that comes from feeling like a solitary island in a vast ocean begins to dissolve as you realize you are not the island, you are a part of the ocean itself. There is a beautiful image used by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh to explain this. He invites us to look at a cloud floating in the sky. He asks, "Can you see the ocean in the cloud? Because without the sun's heat evaporating the water from the ocean, there would be no cloud. Can you see the sun in the cloud? Can you see the wind? The cloud has no separate, independent existence. It is a manifestation of many non-cloud elements. It is empty of a separate self." Then he asks us to consider what happens when the cloud is no longer in the sky. Has the cloud died? We look down and we see the rain falling on the fields. We see the stream flowing to the river. We see the leaves of a tea plant, green and vibrant from the water. We drink a cup of tea and we realize we are drinking the cloud. The cloud has not died. It has transformed. It has continued in a new and beautiful form. You, he says, are just like that cloud. You are not a separate, isolated entity. Look deeply into your hand. You can see your mother and father in it. You can see your ancestors. You can see the sun, the rain, and the earth that produced the food that built your body. You are a manifestation of the entire universe. And when this form passes away, you will not be annihilated. You will continue. You will continue in your children and your grandchildren. You will continue in every act of kindness you have ever performed, which has in turn touched another and another. You will continue in the garden you planted, in the wisdom you shared. There is no beginning and no end, only a ceaseless, wondrous transformation. Understanding this is to be free. Free from the exhausting burden of pretending to be a solid, unchanging thing in a universe of constant flow. Free from the fear that this precious existence will come to a final, absolute end. We have now touched upon two profound truths: that all things are impermanent, anicca, and that the solid self we cling to is an illusion, anatta. These truths are not meant to be depressing. They are the very keys to our freedom. And yet, even with this intellectual understanding, we can still feel a deep ache, a sense of dissatisfaction, a feeling that something is fundamentally not right. Why is this? Why, in the face of this beautiful, flowing, interconnected reality, do we still experience so much pain? This question brings us to the very heart of the Buddha's teaching, his compassionate diagnosis of the human condition, the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. We have journeyed through the vast, impersonal truths of impermanence and no self. We have seen that our lives are like rivers and our identities are like clouds, ever-changing and interconnected. These concepts, while liberating, can feel abstract. Now, we turn towards the most intimate, tangible, and universal aspect of the human experience. We turn towards the starting point of the Buddha's entire teaching, a reality he asked us to look at with unflinching courage and profound compassion. This is the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha. The word dukkha is often translated from the ancient Pali language simply as suffering. But this single word in English is too narrow, too heavy. It fails to capture the subtle and pervasive nature of what the Buddha was pointing to. Yes, dukkha includes the raw, undeniable pain of a grieving heart or an ailing body, but it is also much more than that. It is the persistent, underlying feeling of unsatisfactoriness that hums in the background of our lives. It is the sense that things are just slightly out of joint, that something is fundamentally askew. It is the friction of our existence, the quiet disease and restlessness that can haunt even our most peaceful moments. When the Buddha declared that life contains dukkha, he was not being a pessimist. He was being a supreme realist, a master physician of the mind. He was like a kind doctor who, before offering a cure, must first give a clear and honest diagnosis of the condition. To name our disease is not to surrender to it. It is the first, essential step toward healing it. We can understand dukkha as existing on a spectrum in three distinct layers. The first is the most obvious, the suffering of suffering, or dukkha dukkha. This is the pain that no one can deny. It is the sharp sting of loss when a lifelong partner or a dear friend passes away. It is the chronic ache in a knee or a back that serves as a constant companion. It is the emotional anguish of family conflict, the sorrow of regret, the fear that comes with a difficult medical diagnosis. This is the raw, unavoidable pain of life, the first arrow that strikes us all without prejudice. The second layer is more subtle. It is the dukkha that arises from change, or viparinama dukkha. This form of suffering is born directly from the law of impermanence we have already discussed. It is the pain that comes when a pleasant experience ends. Think of the joy and laughter of a holiday gathering with your children and grandchildren. The house is full of life and warmth. Then they leave. The silence that descends is heavy. The beautiful, happy moment has passed, and its passing leaves behind a shadow of sadness, a quiet ache of longing. This is dukkha. The pleasure we derive from our health, our vitality, our independence, is a source of happiness. But because these things are impermanent, the fear of their eventual decline creates a subtle anxiety that runs beneath the surface of our enjoyment. We cling to happy moments, desperately wishing they would last forever, and in that very clinging, we create our own suffering when they inevitably change. The third and most profound layer is what is known as pervasive dukkha, or sankhara dukkha. This is the baseline unsatisfactoriness of our conditioned existence. It is the general, background hum of anxiety that comes from being a self in a world of flux. It is the feeling, even when things are going well, that something is missing, that our happiness is fragile and dependent on conditions outside of our control. For many, this subtle existential angst, which may have been drowned out by the noise and busyness of career and family building, becomes much more audible in the quiet spaces of life after 60. It is the friction of being a constructed self, built from unreliable parts, trying to find lasting security in an insecure world. It is the deep, unspoken stress of simply being. In these golden years, dukkha can manifest in very specific ways. There is the dukkha of an aging body, the confrontation with physical limitations that were once unimaginable. There is the dukkha of separation, as we witness our circle of peers and loved ones shrink, facing the profound loneliness that can accompany outliving those who knew us best. There is the dukkha of not getting what we want, a desire for our former strength, a wish for more frequent visits from family, a longing for a past that can never be recovered. And there is the dukkha of getting what we do not want, the unwelcome medical report, the necessity of giving up a cherished home, the increasing reliance on the help of others. The Buddha asks us to see these experiences not as personal failings or unique misfortunes, but as universal expressions of the human condition. In seeing their universality, we can begin to hold them with less personal anguish and more compassionate wisdom. In our modern culture, there is often a pressure to deny these truths, to maintain a veneer of relentless positivity. We are told to ignore the pain, to think happy thoughts, to suppress anything that feels negative. The Buddhist path offers a radically different approach. It is a path of profound courage. It asks us to turn around and gently, kindly, look our suffering directly in the eye, to acknowledge it, to name it, to allow it to be there without judgment. In this simple act of fearless acknowledgement, something remarkable happens. The suffering begins to lose its power. It is no longer a shadowy monster chasing us, but simply a sensation, a feeling, a reality that we can observe and investigate. There is a simple yet powerful parable that illustrates this. The Buddha said that in life, we cannot avoid being struck by a first arrow. This first arrow is the painful event itself. It is the diagnosis, the loss, the fall, the betrayal. It is the objective, unavoidable pain of existence. No one is immune, but the wise person, the Buddha taught, does not allow themselves to be struck by a second arrow. What is this second arrow? It is the arrow we shoot at ourselves. It is our reaction to the first arrow. It is the storm of thoughts that follows. Why did this happen to me? This is unfair. I can't bear it. My life is over. It is the anger, the resentment, the self-pity, the catastrophizing. The initial pain of the first arrow is clean and finite. The suffering created by the second arrow is complex, messy, and potentially endless. We take a single wound and inflict 1,000 more upon ourselves with our own mind. The entire practice of wisdom and meditation is not about building a shield to stop the first arrow. That is impossible. The practice is about developing the mindfulness and clarity to not pick up and fire the second arrow. It is about learning to experience the raw, clean pain of life without layering on a thick narrative of mental suffering. This realization gives us back our agency. We may not have control over the first arrows that life sends our way, but we have a choice in how we respond. We can learn to stop wounding ourselves. To acknowledge the truth of dukkha, then, is not a final, pessimistic statement about life. It is a necessary and hopeful starting point. It is the brave declaration that we are no longer willing to run. We are willing to see things as they truly are. And just as any good physician, having diagnosed the illness, does not stop there, neither did the Buddha. The honest diagnosis naturally leads to the next crucial question. Where does this suffering, this dukkha, come from? What is its cause? By courageously examining the symptom, we are now ready to investigate its root. This leads us directly to the second noble truth, the origin of all our suffering. We have stood together and looked with courage at the reality of dukkha, the universal unsatisfactoriness of life. We have acknowledged its presence not with despair, but with the clear-eyed honesty of someone who is ready for a true diagnosis. Now, we take the next crucial step. A skilled physician, having identified the symptoms, proceeds to investigate the cause. This is the second noble truth, known as samudaya, the origin of suffering. And here, in this truth, lies the secret to our own liberation. For the Buddha made a discovery that was both radical and profoundly empowering. The root cause of our suffering is not out there. It is not in our circumstances, our age, our health, or in the actions of others. The ultimate cause of our deep, abiding dissatisfaction lies within our own minds. This is not a truth meant to inspire guilt or blame. It is a truth meant to inspire immense hope. For if the cause of suffering is internal, then the cure must be internal as well. The keys to our own prison are in our own hands. The source of dukkha, the Buddha taught, is a powerful energy called tanha. This Pali word is often translated as craving or desire, but its meaning is closer to a relentless thirst. It is a deep, primal, and insatiable thirst for things to be other than they are. It is the engine of restlessness that drives us constantly from one moment to the next, always seeking, always wanting, always feeling a subtle lack. Tanha is like the itch that is never soothed by scratching. In fact, the scratching only makes it worse. We think that if we can just get that one thing, satisfy that one desire, our thirst will be quenched and we will find lasting peace. But we all know from a lifetime of experience that this is not true. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another one immediately takes its place. The thirst is endless. It is like trying to quench a fire by adding more dry wood. This insatiable thirst is the very fuel of the anxiety and dissatisfaction we call dukkha. This fundamental thirst, this tanha, manifests in our lives in three primary ways. The first and most obvious is the craving for sense pleasures, or kama tanha. This is the thirst for pleasant sights, pleasant sounds, sweet tastes, fragrant smells, and comfortable physical sensations. It is the desire for a new car, a bigger house, a more luxurious vacation. But as we get older, this craving can become more subtle. It may be the craving for a body free of aches and pains, the simple pleasure of physical ease that we once took for granted. It is the constant seeking of comfort and the desperate avoidance of discomfort. We arrange our lives to maximize pleasure and minimize pain, believing this is the formula for happiness. But since all pleasure is impermanent, this strategy is doomed to fail, leaving us in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, fearing the loss of what is pleasant and the arrival of what is unpleasant. The second form of thirst is deeper and more insidious. It is the craving to become, or bhava tanha. This is not just the thirst for things, it is the thirst for existence itself, the ego's desperate drive for identity and continuity. It is the deep desire to be somebody, to be seen as successful, to be respected, to be healthy, to be loved. It is the craving to hold on to a particular version of ourselves, to solidify the story of me. After 60, this can manifest as a powerful craving to be the person we once were, the respected professional, the strong parent, the vibrant individual. We cling to these past identities, and we suffer when present reality does not match them. The fear of becoming irrelevant, of being forgotten, of fading into the background, is a potent form of bhava tanha. It is the ego's terror at its own impermanence. The third form is the craving to not become, or vibhava tanha. This is the flip side of the coin. When the pain of existence, the first arrow of dukkha, becomes too intense, a powerful thirst arises to escape, to annihilate the experience, to push reality away. This is the desire for non-existence. In its mildest form, it is the impulse to numb ourselves through distraction-endless television, food, drink, anything to avoid feeling the discomfort of our present moment. It is the angry, resentful thought, I just want this to stop. It is the powerful aversion to a painful diagnosis or a difficult emotion. It is the desire to push away the reality of our aging, of our mortality. This craving to not become is a violent rejection of life as it is, and it creates immense internal conflict and suffering. These three forms of thirst are fueled by what Buddhism calls the three poisons, which are said to lie at the very center of our conditioned existence. They are greed, aversion, and ignorance. Greed, or lobha, is the energy of pulling toward. It is our desire to grasp and cling to everything we find pleasant. It is the essence of craving for sense pleasures and craving to become. Aversion, or dosa, is the energy of pushing away. It is our desire to reject and destroy everything we find unpleasant. It is the essence of the craving to not become, and the root of all our anger, resentment, and hatred. Finally, and most importantly, there is ignorance, or moha. This is not a lack of information. It is a fundamental delusion about the nature of reality. It is the blindness to the truths of impermanence, anicca, and no, self, anatta. It is this very ignorance that allows greed and aversion to arise. Because we are ignorant of the fact that all things change, we foolishly try to cling to them. Because we are ignorant of the fact that there is no solid self to protect, we react with anger and fear when our constructed identity feels threatened. Ignorance is the toxic soil in which the weeds of suffering grow. There is an old story that perfectly illustrates how we are trapped by our own craving. In a forest, hunters who wanted to catch monkeys would devise a clever trap. They would take a coconut or a gourd and make a small hole in it, just large enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through. Inside, they would place a piece of sweet, sticky rice. A monkey, drawn by the lure of the treat, would come along, slip its hand into the coconut, and grasp the rice. But now, with its hand clenched into a fist around the sweet, it could not pull its hand back, out through the narrow opening. The monkey would pull and shriek, growing more and more frantic, but it would not be able to free itself. The monkey is not being held by the coconut. It is being held by its own fist, by its own desperate refusal to let go of the bait. All the monkey has to do to be free is to open its hand and release the rice. But its craving, its tanha, is so powerful that it will not let go, and so it is easily captured by the hunters when they arrive. We are just like that monkey. We are trapped, not by our circumstances, not by our age, our bodies, or our histories. We are trapped by our own clenched fist, by our refusal to let go of our desires, our attachments, our resentments, and our cherished stories about ourselves. Freedom is not found by breaking the coconut. Freedom is found by simply opening our hand. This is a truth of immense significance. The cause of our suffering is not a mystery. It is not a punishment from an external power. It is the simple, observable, and understandable mechanism of craving, born from ignorance. And this realization is the furthest thing from a cause for despair. It is the dawn of a genuine and realistic hope. For if we have been, through our own craving, the architects of our own dissatisfaction, it means we can also become the architects of our own peace. If the cause is internal, the solution lies within our grasp. This points us directly toward the incredible promise of the third noble truth. The truth that this suffering, this dukkha, this ceaseless thirst, can be brought to an end. We have journeyed into the heart of our own disease. We have looked directly at the symptom, the pervasive unsatisfactoriness of dukkha, and we have, with clear eyes, identified its root cause, the insatiable, restless thirst of tanha. To stop here would be to leave us with a diagnosis without a cure, a map of the prison with no mention of an exit. This could easily lead to a sense of nihilism or despair. But the teaching of the Buddha is, above all, a message of radical hope. His path is not one that ends in a description of our suffering, but one that points definitively beyond it. And so we arrive at the great turning point, the profound good news that lies at the very core of his discovery. This is the third noble truth, nirodha, the truth that there can be an end to our suffering. Nirodha is a word that points to a reality that is difficult to describe, a reality often known by its more famous name, nirvana. Our minds, conditioned by a lifetime of Hollywood films and popular fiction, may immediately conjure images of a heavenly paradise, a beautiful garden in the clouds where we go after we die. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. Nirvana is not a geographical location. It is not a reward waiting for us in a future life. It is a state of mind, a psychological reality that is attainable right here, in this very life, in this very world. The word nirvana itself literally means to extinguish or to blow out. What then is extinguished? It is not our life, not our personality, not our consciousness. What is blown out are the three fires of the poisons that fuel all our suffering: the fire of greed and clinging, the fire of hatred and aversion, and the fire of ignorance and delusion. Imagine your mind is like a turbulent pond, constantly stirred up by the winds of desire and fear. The water is murky, and you cannot see the bottom. Nirvana is the state that occurs when these winds cease. The water of the mind becomes perfectly still, and the mud of confusion settles. The water becomes crystal clear, luminous, reflecting reality exactly as it is, without distortion. It is not a state of blissful unconsciousness or a dull trance. It is a state of heightened awareness, profound clarity, and an unshakable, quiet peace. It is the end of the internal war. It is the freedom that comes when the restless thirst has been quenched, not by getting what it wants, but by ceasing to want. It is the mind returning to its own natural state, unstained, spacious, and free. You may have even tasted fleeting moments of this state in your own life, when you are completely absorbed in watching a breathtaking sunset or listening to a piece of music so beautiful it moves you to tears. For a brief moment, the chattering, wanting me disappears. There is only the seeing, only the hearing. In those moments, the fires are temporarily dormant. Nirvana is the permanent establishment of that peace. To hear that such a state of freedom is possible is wonderful news, but it would be cruel to be told of a cure for which there is no medicine, a destination for which there is no map. And so the Buddha, ever the practical guide, did not stop there. He laid out the fourth noble truth, magga, the clear, practical, and systematic path that leads directly to the cessation of suffering. If nirvana is the destination, the fourth noble truth is the detailed roadmap that anyone can follow. This path is known as the Noble Eightfold Path, a holistic training program for living a life of wisdom, integrity, and peace. It is not a random collection of rules, but a set of 8 interconnected factors that support and deepen one another. These 8 factors are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings. The first is the training in wisdom. This includes right understanding, which is the clear comprehension of these 4 noble truths themselves, and right thought, which means cultivating thoughts of kindness, compassion, and letting go, while abandoning thoughts of greed, hatred, and cruelty. The second is the training in ethical conduct. This includes right speech, speaking truthfully and kindly, without gossip or harshness. Right action, acting in ways that do not harm any living being. And right livelihood, earning a living in a profession that does not cause harm to oneself or others. The third, and perhaps most crucial, is the training in mental discipline. This includes right effort, the gentle but persistent energy to cultivate wholesome states of mind and abandon unwholesome ones. Right mindfulness, the heart of the practice, which we will soon explore in depth, and right concentration, the ability to unify the mind and focus it with unshakable stability. What is most empowering about this path is that it is entirely based on personal effort and direct experience, not on blind faith. The Buddha did not present himself as a savior who would grant liberation to his followers. He saw himself as a guide, someone who had walked the path himself and was now simply showing others the way. One of his last and most famous instructions to his followers was this: be a light unto yourselves. All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence. The responsibility and the power for our own awakening lies squarely within us. We are not helpless children waiting to be rescued. We are adults, endowed with awareness, capable of taking our spiritual lives into our own hands and walking the path to our own freedom. This can all seem like a grand and perhaps daunting undertaking. A lifetime of mental habits cannot be changed overnight. It is helpful to think of the path using a simple image. Imagine you have spent your entire life wandering in a vast, pitch-black room. You are constantly bumping into furniture, stumbling over unseen obstacles, feeling lost, anxious, and afraid. This is a life lived in the darkness of ignorance, driven by the winds of craving. Then, one day, someone comes to you and hands you a small oil lamp and a match and shows you how to light the wick. This lamp is the Noble Eightfold Path. When you light it, the flame does not instantly illuminate the entire, massive room. It does not magically teleport you to the exit door. What it does is it casts a steady pool of light right at your feet. For the first time, you can see the ground you are standing on. You can see the leg of the chair you were about to trip over. You can see the clear space where you can place your very next footstep. The lamp of the path does not eliminate the darkness all at once, but it gives you exactly what you need to navigate it safely, one step at a time. With this light in your hand, you no longer have to wander in fear. You can now walk with a quiet confidence, with purpose and direction, knowing that each intentional step is taking you closer to the door that leads out into the sun. We now stand at a pivotal moment. We have seen the nature of our disease. We have understood its cause. We have been shown that a cure exists, and we have been given the map that leads to it. We hold the lamp in our hands. The journey ahead is not about becoming someone else. It is about waking up to who we already are beneath the layers of conditioning. So where do we begin? How do we strike that first match to light our lamp? Of all the 8 factors of this path, one is considered the very heart of the practice, the foundation upon which all the others are built. It is the skill of training our own attention, the art of being present. It is the beginning of all mental discipline. It is time to learn how to cultivate right mindfulness and to take our very first conscious step on the path to peace. We now stand at the trailhead of the Noble Eightfold Path, the map to our own liberation held gently in our hands. We have been given our lamp to navigate the darkness. The first step, the very heart of this entire journey of awakening, is the cultivation of right mindfulness. In the Pali language, this is samasati. Mindfulness, in its simplest essence, means to pay attention, on purpose, in the present moment, without judgment. This sounds deceptively simple. Yet, if you take a moment to observe your own mind, you will quickly discover It is one of the most challenging things a human being can do. We find that we are not the calm and rational masters of our own consciousness. Instead, we are often at the mercy of what is called the monkey mind. Imagine a drunken monkey, one that has also been stung by a scorpion. It leaps and shrieks, swinging chaotically from one branch to another, never resting, never still. This is an ancient and accurate metaphor for our untrained mind. It swings wildly from a branch of the past, replaying old conversations and nursing old grievances, to a branch of the future, rehearsing imagined scenarios and worrying about what might come. It chatters incessantly with self-criticism, with judgments of others, with endless to-do lists. It is so rarely on the branch of the present moment, the only place where our life is actually happening. We live so much of our lives lost in thought, effectively absent from the only reality we will ever have, the reality of now. The practice of mindfulness is the gentle and patient training of this monkey mind, not by caging it, but by giving it a calm and steady place to rest. For this training, we need an anchor that is reliable, portable, and always available to us, to keep our ship of awareness from being endlessly tossed about on the stormy seas of thought. The Buddha discovered the perfect anchor. It is your own breath. The breath has several unique qualities that make it the ideal object for mindfulness practice. First, it is always with you, from the moment of your birth to the moment of your death. It is a faithful, constant companion. You do not need any special equipment, any quiet room, or any particular belief system to access it. Your anchor is always here. Second, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot take a breath that is in the past, nor can you take a breath that is in the future. To be aware of your breath is, by definition, to be present. It is the most direct and simple way to pull your awareness out of the phantom worlds of past and future and ground it in the vibrant reality of the now. Finally, the breath is intimately connected to our mental and emotional state. When we are anxious, our breath is shallow and rapid. When we are calm, our breath is deep and slow. By simply observing the breath, without even trying to change it, we send a powerful signal to our nervous system that it is safe to relax, that it can move from a state of agitation to a state of calm. Let us try, just for a moment, this simple, ancient practice. Find a comfortable position, perhaps sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, your hands resting gently in your lap. Allow your back to be upright, not rigid and stiff like a soldier, but dignified and alert, like a quiet mountain. You can gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, lower your gaze to a spot on the floor a few feet in front of you. There is nothing to achieve here, no goal to reach. The only intention is to be present with what is. Now, bring your attention to the physical sensation of your breathing. You might notice it most clearly at the tip of your nostrils, feeling the cool air entering and the slightly warmer air leaving. Or you might feel it more in the chest, or in the gentle rise and fall of your abdomen. Choose one of these spots as your home base. Let your attention rest gently on these sensations. Feel the full duration of the in-breath, from its beginning to its middle to its end, and feel the full duration of the out-breath. There is no need to control the breath, to make it deeper or slower. Simply allow it to be as it is. Your only job is to watch it, to feel it, to be intimate with it. It is as if your awareness is a butterfly, resting lightly on the flower of your breath. Now, sooner or later, and probably sooner, you will notice that your mind has wandered. You are no longer with the breath. You are lost in a thought, a memory, a plan, a worry. This is not a mistake. It is not a failure. It is simply what minds do. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is a moment of pure mindfulness. In that moment, without any judgment or frustration, gently acknowledge where your mind went, thinking, and then, like a loving parent, guiding a wandering child, gently and kindly escort your attention back to the physical sensation of the breath. This is the practice. It is not about having a perfectly still mind. It is about the gentle, patient, and compassionate act of returning over and over and over and over again. Each time you return to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are coming home. In the Zen tradition, this process of training the mind is often compared to the taming of a wild ox. The ox, powerful and covered in mud, represents our untamed mind, full of chaotic energy, running wild wherever its impulses lead. The ox herder is you, the practitioner, and the rope you hold in your hand is the practice of mindfulness, your steady attention on the breath. At first, the ox is wild. It pulls and fights against the rope, wanting to run off into the thickets of thought and emotion. The herder must be patient and persistent, holding the rope firmly but without anger, gently leading the ox again and again. Slowly, through this consistent and gentle effort, the ox begins to calm down. It becomes accustomed to the guidance of the rope. It wanders less. The herder can begin to loosen his grip. The mind, our ox, learns to stay in the present moment with greater ease and less resistance. With continued practice, the ox becomes so peaceful and tame that the rope is no longer needed. It happily follows the herder. Eventually, the herder can even rest on the ox's back, playing a flute as they journey home together in the evening light. This represents a mind that has become unified, calm, and effortlessly present. The practice is no longer a struggle, but a natural state of being. The mind and the master are one, moving through the world with grace and peace. This simple act of returning to the breath is the most powerful tool we have for taming our own inner ox. The breath is our sanctuary, our safe harbor in any storm. It is the rope that connects us back to the present moment, back to our own life. Every time we consciously feel one in-breath and one out-breath, we are creating a small pocket of peace and clarity in our day. We are lighting our lamp. But this practice, this precious tool, is not meant to be used only when we are sitting on a cushion with our eyes closed. That is just the training ground. The ultimate purpose is to take this quality of present moment awareness, this calm and centered attention, and infuse it into the very fabric of our ordinary lives. The quiet refuge we discover in our breath can be expanded, allowing us to find the sacred in the mundane and the extraordinary in the ordinary. And that is where our journey takes us next. Off the cushion and into the world. We have discovered our anchor in the breath, a safe harbor available to us in any moment. The meditation cushion, the quiet chair. This is our gymnasium, the place where we go to strengthen the muscle of mindfulness. But a muscle that is only ever used in the gym is of little use in the real world. The ultimate purpose of our practice is not to become a professional meditator, skilled at sitting with our eyes closed. It is to take this precious quality of awakened presence, this calm and clear attention, and weave it into the very fabric of our lives. The true meditation hall is not a room with an altar. It is the kitchen, the garden, the sidewalk, the living room. The goal is to infuse the thousands of ordinary moments that make up our day with the extraordinary quality of mindfulness. This is the art of living a Zen life, where every act, no matter how mundane, can become an opportunity for peace and profound insight. Our culture teaches us to see life as a series of tasks to be completed, chores to be rushed through in order to get to the good parts. We wash the dishes while thinking about the television show we want to watch. We drink our morning coffee while scrolling through the news on our phone, our minds already racing with the day's anxieties. We walk from one room to another, completely lost in thought, unaware of our own bodies or our surroundings. In this state of perpetual distraction, we are only ever half alive. Our bodies are in one place, while our minds are somewhere else entirely. Mindfulness in daily life is the gentle invitation to bring body and mind back together, to be fully present for the life that is unfolding right here, right now. Let us take the simple act of drinking a cup of tea or coffee. This can be a 10-second act of unconscious consumption, or it can be a 5-minute ceremony of profound peace. Instead of rushing, you can choose to practice. First, feel the warmth and weight of the mug in your hands. Acknowledge the journey this drink has taken to reach you: the rain, the sun, the earth that grew the beans or the leaves, the many hands that harvested and transported them. Bring the cup to your nose and inhale its aroma. Then, take the first sip. Don't just swallow it. Let it rest in your mouth for a moment and truly taste its flavor, its bitterness or sweetness, its complexity. Feel the warmth as it spreads through your body. In these few moments, there are no worries about the past, no anxieties about the future. There is only you, the cup, and the present moment. You are fully alive. Consider what we often see as a tedious chore: washing the dishes. This too can be transformed from a task to be endured into a practice of meditation. As you stand at the sink, feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. See the light reflecting in the soap bubbles, like miniature, iridescent jewels. Hear the sound of the water running, the gentle friction of the sponge against the plate. Instead of letting your mind complain or wander off, bring your full attention to the simple, direct experience of cleaning one dish. In that moment, you are not just washing a dish, you are washing your own mind, cleansing it of distraction and agitation. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh famously said that if you are incapable of washing the dishes mindfully, you are probably incapable of enjoying your cup of tea afterward either. The quality of our life is determined not by what we are doing, but by the quality of attention we bring to it. This practice is especially potent and meaningful as we enter a new chapter of life after 60. The frantic pace of career and raising a family has often subsided. The long open days of retirement can sometimes feel empty, a void that we try to fill with activity and distraction. But mindfulness offers a different way. It invites us to see this new spaciousness, not as emptiness, but as an opportunity. The purpose of our days no longer needs to come from external achievements. A new, quieter, and perhaps more profound purpose can be found in the quality of our presence. The goal is no longer to accomplish more, but to experience more deeply. In this way, simple routines become nourishing rituals. Making the bed, tending to a houseplant, folding the laundry, taking a walk, each of these can become a sacred act, a way of honoring our life and cultivating a deep sense of inner peace that is not dependent on anything external. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly captures this wisdom. A young, eager student, burning with the desire for truth, sought out a renowned Zen master. "Master," he pleaded, "I have traveled a long way to find you. Please, tell me, what is the ultimate secret of enlightenment? What is the highest wisdom?" The master, who was quietly drinking a bowl of tea, looked at the young man and replied simply, "When you are hungry, you eat. When you are tired, you sleep." The student was shocked and deeply disappointed. This was the great secret he had traveled so far for. "But master," he protested, "that is what everybody does. How can such an ordinary thing be the path to liberation?" The master smiled with great compassion. "My dear friend," he said, "that is where you are mistaken. When an ordinary person eats, their mind is 1,000 miles away. They are replaying a past argument, worrying about a future debt, judging the food, thinking about what they will do next. They are not truly there. When an ordinary person lies down to sleep, they do not truly rest. Their mind is filled with 1,000 anxieties, and their body is tense with unresolved conflicts. But the wise person, the mindful person, when they eat, they just eat. They are fully present with the taste and texture of the food. When they are tired and they lie down to sleep, they just sleep. They are fully present with the relaxation of their body. In this total presence, with the simplicity of what is, lies all the wisdom you are seeking. This is the invitation for us today, to find our wisdom not in grand ideas, but in the texture of our own lives. By bringing our full attention to the simple acts of living, we reduce the power of stress, which lives almost exclusively in our thoughts about the past and future. We dramatically increase our capacity for gratitude and joy in the small pleasures that are always available to us. We transform boredom, which is simply a lack of attention, into a rich field of sensory experience. We are giving ourselves the most precious gift of all, the gift of our own presence. As we begin to practice this, turning our world into our meditation hall, one thing becomes astonishingly clear. We become acutely aware of the sheer volume of traffic in our own minds, the constant stream of inner commentary, of judgments, of stories, of plans, of memories, becomes undeniable. It can even be a little overwhelming to realize just how noisy it is inside our own heads. This new awareness, while a sign of progress, brings with it a crucial question. What do we do with all this mental chatter? How do we relate to this constant river of thoughts without getting swept away by its powerful current? This brings us to the next essential skill on our path: learning to sit peacefully on the riverbank of our own awareness and simply watch the river of thought flow by. Having learned to anchor ourselves in the present moment through the breath, and having begun to carry that mindfulness into our daily activities, we inevitably come face to face with the true nature of our own minds. It is as if for our whole lives we have been living in a dimly lit house, and we have just now turned up the lights, and the first thing we see is the clutter. We see the ceaseless, chaotic stream of thoughts, memories, judgments, and fantasies that constantly flows through our consciousness. For many who begin this practice, this can be a moment of discouragement. One might think, I'm trying to be more peaceful, but my mind seems noisier than ever before. It is crucial to understand that this is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of success. You are not creating more noise. You are simply becoming aware of the noise that has been there all along. Seeing this chaos clearly is the first and most vital step toward finding freedom from it. The goal of our practice is not to stop our thoughts, an impossible and frustrating task. The goal is to fundamentally change our relationship to them. Here we encounter one of the most liberating insights in all of Buddhist psychology. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are not you. This is a revolutionary idea. We are conditioned to believe that we are the voice in our head. We identify with our thoughts so completely that we become them. When an angry thought arises, we believe, I am angry. When a sad memory surfaces, we believe, I am a sad person. When a self-critical thought appears, we believe, "I am a failure." The practice of mindfulness invites us to see this from a completely different perspective. Imagine that your awareness, your fundamental consciousness, is like the vast, open blue sky. The sky is spacious, boundless, and by its very nature, peaceful and untroubled. Thoughts, feelings, sounds, and sensations are like clouds that drift through the sky. Some clouds are white and puffy and pleasant to look at. Others are dark, heavy, and full of thunder and lightning. They come, they stay for a while, they change shape, and eventually they drift away, dissolving back into the vastness. But no matter how dark or violent the storm clouds may be, the sky itself is never stained, never harmed, never fundamentally changed by the clouds that pass through it. The sky remains sky. Our suffering arises from a case of mistaken identity. We forget that we are the sky, and we start believing that we are the clouds. We chase after the pleasant white clouds, trying to hold on to them. We run from the dark storm clouds, trying to push them away. We become completely entangled in the weather patterns of our own minds, forgetting the vast, peaceful sky that is our true nature. The practice, then, is to learn how to disidentify. It is to shift our perspective from being lost in the cloud to resting back and becoming the spacious, accepting sky that holds the cloud. It is to realize that you are the silent witness to the thought, not the thought itself. In this shift of identity, from thought to witness, lies the space of all our freedom. To cultivate this freedom, we can use a simple and powerful technique, often called noting or labeling. It is a way of acknowledging our thoughts without getting swept away by their content. As you sit quietly, or even as you go about your day, you will notice the mind being pulled away from the present moment. The moment you notice this, you can gently and silently apply a soft, one-word label to the experience. For instance, if you find yourself lost in a detailed plan about an upcoming doctor's appointment, you can just softly note in your mind, planning. If you are suddenly caught in a vivid memory of a past holiday, you can gently note, remembering. If a wave of anxiety about the future washes over you, you can label it worrying. If you find yourself criticizing your own practice, judging. If you are daydreaming about being somewhere else, dreaming. The tone of this labeling is of the utmost importance. It is not harsh, critical, or analytical. It is gentle, soft, and matter of fact, like a scientist impartially observing a phenomenon, or a librarian stamping a book before placing it on a shelf. The label simply acknowledges what is present in the mind at that moment. The magic of this technique is that the simple act of naming the thought immediately pulls you out of its narrative. You are no longer the main character in the movie of your mind. You have moved back into the audience, watching the film on the screen. It breaks the trance of being lost in thought and returns you to your seat as the calm, present observer. A beautiful metaphor for this practice is to imagine yourself sitting on a lush, green riverbank on a calm afternoon. The river flowing before you is your own stream of consciousness. Floating on the river's surface are countless leaves, each one representing a thought, a feeling, or a memory. They come in all shapes and sizes. Some are bright green and beautiful. Others are brown, crumpled, and decaying. Your habitual tendency, your lifelong conditioning, is to see a particularly interesting or disturbing leaf float by, and without a second thought, you jump into the cold, fast-moving water. You try to grab the leaf, or fight with it, or push it away. But the moment you are in the river, you are caught in its powerful current. You are tossed and turned, carried downstream, far from your peaceful spot on the bank. This is the experience of being lost in thought. The practice of mindfulness, of observing your thoughts, is the practice of learning to stay on the riverbank. You see the leaves. You acknowledge them clearly. Ah, there goes a leaf of anger. Look, a leaf of planning what to make for dinner. And there is a leaf of sadness for a time gone by. You see them all, but you make the conscious, gentle choice to not jump into the river. You simply let them float into your field of awareness, and you watch as they eventually float on by, disappearing downstream. You realize that the river flows whether you jump in or not. Your peace is found not by trying to stop the river or control the leaves, but by simply resting in your choice to remain on the bank. This approach is profoundly counterintuitive. Our instinct, especially with painful or negative thoughts, is to fight them, to suppress them, to argue with them. But as anyone who has tried this knows, fighting with a thought only gives it more energy. It is like trying to drown a ghost. It doesn't work. The mindful approach is one of radical permission. We allow the thoughts to be there. We create a vast, open, compassionate space for all the leaves on our river to float by without a struggle. And paradoxically, it is this very acceptance, this letting be, that robs the difficult thoughts of their power over us. They are like a guest who came for a fight, and when you simply offer them a cup of tea and a comfortable chair, they become confused and eventually leave on their own. By learning to observe our thoughts in this way, we begin a process of profound untangling. We are no longer a helpless character, tossed about in the endless drama of our own mind. We are becoming the calm, wise, and compassionate audience. But as we sit on this riverbank, we notice something important. Many of these leaves are not just dry, intellectual thoughts. They are soaked through with potent emotional energies. We see leaves of deep sadness, leaves of hot anger, leaves of cold fear. How do we relate to these powerful emotional currents without getting drenched and pulled into the river? Our journey now takes us a step deeper into the heart of our feelings, to learn how to meet them not with resistance, but with the warmth of understanding and care. Having learned to sit on the riverbank of our awareness, watching the leaves of thought float by, we now turn our attention to the ones that are heaviest, the ones soaked through with the potent energies of our emotions. We see the dark, heavy leaf of sadness, the hot, jagged leaf of anger, the cold, trembling leaf of fear. Our instinct, our lifelong conditioning, is to react to these powerful feelings in one of two ways. We either suppress them, telling ourselves, I shouldn't feel this way, it's weak, it's negative, pushing them down into the dark basement of our psyche, where they fester and grow. Or we become completely consumed by them. We identify with the emotion so fully that we become its puppet, lashing out in a storm of anger or drowning in a sea of despair. The path of mindfulness offers a third way, a middle path that is neither suppression nor indulgence. It is the path of courageous and compassionate engagement. It is the art of learning to turn towards our most difficult feelings, not with fear or judgment, but with the gentle, healing touch of a kind friend. The first step in this practice is to fundamentally reframe our understanding of what an emotion is. We are taught to categorize them as good or bad. Joy, love, and peace are good. Anger, sadness, and fear are bad. But in the view of wisdom, emotions are not good or bad. They are simply energy. They are natural responses, messengers from our deep consciousness that are trying to communicate something important to us. Anger is a hot, expansive energy, often pointing to a boundary that has been crossed or a deep sense of injustice. Sadness is a heavy, slow energy, often pointing to a meaningful loss. Fear is a cold, contracting energy, pointing to a perceived threat to our safety or well-being. The problem is never the emotion itself. The problem is our relationship to it. When we suppress these energies, they become trapped within our nervous system, manifesting as chronic stress, tension, and physical ailments. When we let them possess us completely, we act in ways that cause harm to ourselves and to those around us. The mindful path is about learning to listen to the message without being consumed by the messenger. To do this, we can use the powerful image of tending to a small, crying child within us. When a strong emotion like anger or sadness arises, imagine that it is the cry of this vulnerable inner child. Your first duty as a compassionate caregiver is not to scold the child or tell it to be quiet. Your first duty is to turn towards it with care. The practice can be understood in a few simple yet profound steps. First, you acknowledge its presence. The moment you feel the heat of anger or the weight of sorrow, you can say to yourself, silently and gently, "Ah, sadness is here. I see you." You are not saying "I am sad," but rather, you are recognizing sadness as a visitor in the house of your awareness. This simple acknowledgement creates a crucial space between you, the observer, and the emotion. The second step is to consciously turn your attention inward and embrace the feeling. You can use your breath as a tool for this embrace. As you breathe in, you are aware of the feeling in your body, its location, its texture. As you breathe out, you offer it softness. You offer it space. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offers a simple verse for this. Breathing in, I know that anger is in me. Breathing out, I am taking good care of my anger. You are not trying to get rid of it. You are treating it like a beloved child who is in distress. You are holding it with the gentle, non-judgmental warmth of your own mindful presence. The third step, once you have created this safe and stable container, is to listen. You can gently ask the emotion, "Hello, my dear sadness, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need right now?" You listen not with your analytical mind, which will want to create stories and blame others, but with your heart, with your intuitive wisdom. As you listen deeply, you might discover that beneath the fiery surface of your anger lies a tender feeling of being hurt or deeply misunderstood. You might find that beneath the heavy blanket of sadness is the profound ache of a cherished memory or a significant loss. By listening in this way, you are attending to the root of the emotion, not just its surface expression. And as the deeper need is understood and held in compassion, the intense energy of the emotion naturally begins to soften and transform. This practice is powerful for emotions that arise from within. But what about anger that is directed at us from the outside? A classic story from the life of the Buddha illustrates how to maintain our peace in the face of another's rage. A man who disagreed vehemently with the Buddha's teachings came to him one day and began to shout insults. He berated him, called him a fool, and accused him of misleading the people. The Buddha did not react. He sat in perfect stillness and silence, listening with calm attention until the man, having exhausted his vocabulary of insults, finally fell quiet, panting with exertion. When the silence had settled, the Buddha asked him a simple question. "My friend," he said, "if you prepare a beautiful gift for someone and you offer it to them, but that person politely declines to accept your gift, to whom does that gift then belong?" The man, taken aback by the unexpected question, thought for a moment and replied, "Well, it would still belong to me, of course, to the one who offered it. The Buddha nodded his head gently. Precisely, he said. And so it is with your anger. For the past hour, you have offered me this gift of your anger, your insults, and your rage. I have chosen not to accept it. Therefore, it remains with you. This story teaches us that we have a profound choice. We do not have to internalize the negativity of others. By remaining grounded in our own mindful presence, we can allow another person's anger to be their own energy, their own suffering, without taking it on as our own. This is the ultimate act of self-care and a profound expression of inner freedom. When we practice in this way, we discover an alchemical secret. Emotions, when met with compassionate awareness, can be transformed. Their raw energy is not destroyed, but repurposed. The fire of anger, once its message is understood, can be transformed into the passionate energy for right action, to protect boundaries in a healthy way, or to work against injustice. The deep, heavy water of sadness can carve a greater capacity for empathy and compassion in our hearts, connecting us more deeply to the shared human experience. Fear, when faced with courage, can be transformed into wisdom and prudence. In the furnace of mindfulness, nothing is wasted. We have seen that the path to emotional freedom is not through fighting or fleeing, but through a courageous and kind embrace of our own inner world. By learning to be a gentle caregiver to the vulnerable child within us, we become our own source of healing and stability. This practice of cultivating kindness for our own difficult states is the essential foundation for what comes next. For once we have truly learned how to offer this unconditional, compassionate acceptance to ourselves, we find that our hearts naturally wish to extend it outward. This opens the door to the beautiful and transformative practice of cultivating loving kindness for all beings. Having learned to turn inward with kindness, to meet our own difficult emotions with the tender embrace of a caring friend, we have prepared the soil of our hearts. We have discovered that compassion for ourselves is not selfish. It is the necessary foundation for a truly open and loving heart. Now, we are ready to plant a new kind of seed. We are ready to cultivate the boundless quality of metta, a Pali word most often translated as loving kindness. Metta is not the possessive, romantic love of songs and poems, nor is it a sentimental affection reserved only for those we like. Metta is a universal, unconditional benevolence. It is a sincere and heartfelt wish for the genuine well-being of all living things, starting with ourselves. It is not an emotion we must wait for, but a skill of the heart that can be intentionally developed, a warmth that we can learn to radiate, just as the sun radiates light. The practice of cultivating metta, known as metta bhavana, begins in the place that is often the most difficult for us to access with kindness, our own being. For so many of us, especially as we look back over the long arc of a lifetime, our inner landscape is filled with the voices of criticism and regret. We are our own harshest judges. The practice of metta invites us to lay down this burden of self-judgment. It asserts a simple and radical truth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot genuinely wish for others to be happy if your own heart is a reservoir of ill will toward yourself. Therefore, the journey into universal love must begin at home. To begin, find a posture that feels both comfortable and dignified. Allow your eyes to close gently. For a few moments, just rest with your breath, allowing your body and mind to settle. Then, bring your attention to your own heart center. You might even place a hand over your heart to help focus your attention there. The first step is to offer the gift of loving kindness to yourself. You can bring to mind an image of yourself, perhaps as an innocent young child, or simply hold a sense of your own presence. Then, silently and slowly, like the gentle falling of rain on dry earth, begin to repeat a series of phrases. The traditional phrases are a simple and powerful offering. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. As you repeat these phrases, do not worry if they feel mechanical or insincere at first. Do not struggle if a voice of resistance arises, a voice that says, "I don't deserve this." Simply notice that resistance with the same gentle mindfulness we have been cultivating, and return to the phrases. You are not trying to force a feeling. You are planting a seed. Your gentle, patient repetition is the water that will allow that seed to germinate in its own time. Just offer the words as a gift to your own being. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be truly happy and contented. May I be as healthy and strong as it is possible for me to be. May my life be filled with a sense of peace and well-being. Stay with this for some time, bathing yourself in this gentle intention. Once you have established some sense of warmth and kindness for yourself, you can begin to expand the circle of your metta. The next step is to bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend, someone for whom you feel natural and uncomplicated love and gratitude. It could be a spouse, a child, a mentor, or even a beloved pet. Hold their image clearly in your mind's eye, and now direct the phrases of loving kindness toward them. Feel the natural welling up of warmth in your heart as you sincerely wish for their well-being. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong. May you live with ease. Rest in this feeling of heartfelt connection, allowing your goodwill to flow freely towards this cherished being. After spending some time with your loved one, the practice invites us to stretch our hearts a little further. Now, bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see or interact with, but for whom you have no strong feelings of like or dislike. It could be the person who delivers your mail, a cashier at the grocery store, a neighbor you see but do not know well. Often, we move through our day, seeing such people as mere functions, not as complex human beings with their own hopes and fears. This practice helps to dissolve that wall of indifference. Hold the image of this neutral person in your mind and, just as you did for yourself and your loved one, offer them the same sincere wishes. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong. May you live with ease. In doing this, you are acknowledging their humanity and your shared desire for peace and happiness. Now comes the great challenge, the part of the practice that has the power to heal our deepest wounds. We now turn our attention to a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict, someone who has hurt us. It is crucial to approach this stage with wisdom and care. This practice is not about condoning harmful actions or forcing a superficial forgiveness. It is an act of healing for our own heart. Holding on to anger, resentment, and hatred is a terrible burden. It is like carrying a hot coal in your hand, with the intention of someday throwing it at your enemy. In the meantime, you are the one who is being burned. This practice is about your choice to put down the hot coal, not for their sake, but for yours. Start with someone who has caused you only mild irritation. With as much sincerity as you can muster, hold their image in your mind and offer them the phrases of metta. This may feel very difficult. If it does, you can alter the phrases. To the best of your ability, may you be free from suffering. May you find your own peace. The goal is to free your heart from the prison of hatred. The full expression of metta is to become like the sun. When the sun rises in the morning, it does not choose who is worthy of its light and warmth. It shines on everything and everyone without discrimination. It shines on the beautiful flower, and it shines on the muddy puddle. It warms the body of the kind person and the body of the angry person. Its very nature is to radiate warmth, unconditionally and impartially. To cultivate a heart of metta is to learn to become like the sun. And so, in the final stage of the practice, we let our intention become boundless. After moving from ourselves to a loved one, to a neutral person, and to a difficult person, we now dissolve all boundaries. We extend our loving kindness in all directions, to all beings in the room with you, to all beings in your city, in your country, to all beings on this continent, and all beings on this planet, to beings seen and unseen, near and far, large and small, in all directions north, south, east and west, above and below. May all beings, without any exception, be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy and strong. May all beings live with ease and in peace. Metta is a radical practice of training the heart. It systematically melts the ice of separation, resentment, indifference, and fear. It is a returning to our most fundamental nature, which is one of connection. But this beautiful wish for all beings to be happy, this boundless loving kindness, has a natural and inseparable partner. What happens when our open heart turns its attention to the world and sees that, in fact, many beings are not happy, that they are in pain, that they are suffering? A heart filled with metta, upon seeing suffering, naturally gives rise to the wish for that suffering to be relieved. This is the birth of true compassion, and our journey now leads us to explore this next great quality of the awakened heart, the quality of karuna. Our hearts, having been softened and opened by the gentle rain of loving kindness, are now fertile ground for a new and profound growth. We have cultivated metta, the sincere wish for all beings to be happy and at peace. But as we turn our gaze toward the world, with a heart full of this benevolent warmth, we are met with an unavoidable reality. The world is filled with suffering. We see loneliness, illness, grief, and fear in the lives of those around us, and in the news from distant lands. A heart that has been trained in metta does not turn away from this pain. It does not shut down. Instead, when a loving heart encounters suffering, it naturally trembles. This trembling of the heart, this resonant vibration with the pain of another, is the birth of karuna, the Sanskrit word for compassion. Karuna is the inseparable twin of loving kindness. It is the active desire for the suffering of all beings to cease. It is not a passive feeling of sadness, but an energizing motivation to act, to help, to serve. It is where the warmth of our love meets the wounds of the world. It is essential, as we begin to explore compassion, to distinguish it from a more common and less helpful emotion, pity. Pity and compassion may seem similar on the surface, but at their root, they are opposites. Pity arises from a sense of separation. When we feel pity for someone, we are looking down from a position of perceived superiority. We think, "Oh, that poor person. I am so glad I am not in their situation." This creates a wall between me, the fortunate one, and you, the unfortunate one. Pity can feel condescending and disempowering to the person receiving it. It reinforces the illusion of a separate, isolated self. Compassion, on the other hand, is born from a sense of connection. It arises from the wisdom that we are not separate. It is the ability to feel with another person, to understand that their suffering is not fundamentally different from our own. It breaks down the wall of separation and builds a bridge of shared humanity. Compassion does not say, I am up here, and you are down there. It says, we are in this together. Your pain touches my heart. In our desire to be compassionate, our first impulse is often to do something. We want to fix the problem, offer advice, find a solution. This impulse, while well-intentioned, often comes from our own discomfort, with sitting in the presence of another's pain. We want to resolve it quickly so that we can feel better. But the deepest and often most healing act of compassion is not in doing, but in being. It is the practice of deep, compassionate listening. This is an art that we have largely forgotten in our busy, distracted world. It is the practice of listening with only one intention: to provide a safe space for another person to empty their heart. When we listen in this way, we are not formulating our response while the other person is speaking. We are not waiting for our turn to share our own story or offer our own brilliant solution. We are simply offering the total, non-judgmental gift of our presence. We listen with our ears, but also with our eyes, with our body, with our whole heart. This kind of listening is a powerful form of healing. To be truly seen and truly heard, without judgment, is one of the deepest needs of the human heart. For those of us with a lifetime of experience, the temptation to immediately offer advice can be very strong. The practice of karuna asks us to hold that impulse with mindfulness and to first offer the more profound gift of our quiet, unwavering, compassionate presence. In Mahayana Buddhism, the boundless ideal of compassion is embodied in the figure of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, known as Quan in Vietnam. A bodhisattva is an enlightened being who postpones their own final nirvana out of a compassionate vow to help all other beings achieve liberation first. The legend tells that Avalokiteshvara looked out upon the world and saw the endless, churning ocean of suffering. He saw beings trapped in greed, hatred, and ignorance, and his heart was so utterly broken by the immensity of this pain that his head shattered into 11 pieces. The Buddha of infinite light, Amitabha, seeing his noble despair, reassembled his head, giving him 11 heads so that he could better hear the countless cries of the world. Avalokiteshvara then tried to reach out and alleviate all this suffering, but he found that his 2 arms were not nearly enough. In his effort, his arms also shattered. Once again, Amitabha came to his aid, transforming the broken pieces into 1,000 helping hands, and in the palm of each hand was a compassionate eye. This powerful story is not a literal account, but a profound metaphor for the nature of true compassion. The 11 heads represent the ability to perceive suffering from all angles, to listen in all directions, to be fully aware of the pain of the world. The 1,000 hands represent the boundless capacity for skillful, active help, and the eye in the palm of each hand represents the crucial union of compassion and wisdom. For compassion without wisdom can be unskillful and can sometimes cause more harm than good. The eye of wisdom ensures that the helping hand of compassion acts in a way that is truly beneficial. Avalokiteshvara embodies the unwavering courage of a heart that is not overwhelmed or defeated by the scale of suffering, but is instead galvanized by it into limitless, wise, and compassionate action. This union of compassion and wisdom is vital. It protects us from what is sometimes called idiot compassioner, well-intentioned but unskillful helping that may enable unhealthy behavior or create dependency. It also protects us from compassion, fatigue, or burnout. If we simply open our hearts and try to absorb all the pain of the world without the grounding of our own solid practice, we will quickly become overwhelmed and depleted. We cannot serve from an empty vessel. This is why our own mindfulness practice, our own cultivation of inner peace, is not selfish. In fact, Our own peace is the most valuable gift we can offer to a suffering world. We must continue to tend to our own hearts, to practice metta for ourselves, to retreat when we need to, in order to replenish our well of well-being. Only then can we offer a steady hand to others, without losing our own balance. As we cultivate karuna, as we learn to listen deeply and respond wisely to the pain we see around us, something remarkable begins to happen. The rigid boundaries that we once perceived between self and other begin to soften and dissolve. We see our shared vulnerability, our shared longing for peace, our shared humanness. We begin to understand, on a gut level, not just as an idea, that their suffering is not truly separate from our suffering, and our well-being is not separate from their well-being. This direct, experiential insight into our profound interconnectedness with all of life has a name. It is the next great truth on our path, the beautiful and world-transforming realization of interbeing. Our journey inward has brought us to a place of profound connection. Through the practice of loving kindness, metta, our hearts have opened with the wish for all beings to be happy. Through the practice of compassion, karuna, our hearts have learned to tremble with the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. As we cultivate these qualities, a deep and intuitive understanding begins to dawn within us. We start to feel, not just as an idea, but as a living reality, that the lines we draw between self and other, between me and you, are illusory. This direct experience of our profound interconnectedness is the heart of the teaching, known as interbeing. This beautiful term, from the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, is a simple way of expressing one of the deepest truths of existence. It tells us that nothing in this entire cosmos exists by itself, separate from everything else. Everything relies on everything else to be. To be is to interbe. This may sound philosophical, but it is as practical and real as the air you are breathing. We can see this truth clearly by taking a moment to look deeply at something as ordinary as a single sheet of paper. Imagine you are holding this sheet of paper in your hands. If we ask, "What is this?" we might say, "It's a piece of paper." But let us look more deeply. To have this paper, we must first have a tree. For the tree to grow, it needs rain. And where does the rain come from? It comes from the clouds. So, if we look deeply, we can see the cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without the cloud, there is no rain, no tree, and no paper. Now, look again. For the tree to grow, it also needs sunshine. The energy of the sun is essential for photosynthesis, the process that turns light into life. So, the sunshine is also here, in this sheet of paper. And what about the logger who cut down the tree? We can see the logger's hands, their strength, and we can also see the bread they ate for breakfast that gave them that strength. And in that bread is the wheat, the field, the earth, and the rain that nourished it. The logger's parents are also in the paper, for without them, there would be no logger. The person who drove the truck, the people who worked at the paper mill, the person who sold you the paper, all of them are present here. If we were to take the cloud out of the paper could not exist. If we were to take the sun out of the paper would cease to be. If we take out the tree, the logger, the earth, there is no paper left. The paper we come to see is empty of a separate, independent self. It has no core essence that is only paper. But it is precisely because it is empty of a separate self that it is full of everything else in the universe. The entire cosmos has come together in this moment to manifest as this simple sheet of paper. It is with all that is. Now, let us turn this deep looking upon ourselves. Look at your own hand. In this hand, you can see your mother, and your father. Their life, their love, their genes are woven into the very fabric of your being. Their presence is not just a memory, it is a physical reality in every cell of your body. Look deeper, and you can see your grandparents and your great-grandparents, an endless stream of ancestors stretching back through time, all of whom have contributed to your existence right now. Look at your hand again, and you can see the sunshine, the clouds, and the rain that nourished the food you ate this morning. The farmer who grew that food is in your hand. The earth itself is in your hand. The air you are breathing in this very moment, a constant exchange between your body and the world, is in your hand. The you that you think of as a solid, separate, independent self is, in fact, just like the sheet of paper. You are empty of a separate self, and therefore you are full of the entire universe. You are a precious, temporary, and unique manifestation of all that is. You interact with all of life. This understanding is not just a beautiful piece of poetry. It is a powerful medicine for our deepest sufferings, especially the pain of loneliness. As we grow older, our world can sometimes feel like it is shrinking. Friends and partners may pass away. Children grow up and move to distant places. The feeling of being a solitary island can become a source of profound sadness. The wisdom of interbeing is the ultimate antidote to this feeling of separation. It shows us that we are never, and can never be, truly alone. Our loved ones who have passed from this life are not gone. They continue in us. The way you laugh, a piece of advice you often give. Your love for gardening, these are their continuation in you. Their love, their kindness, and their wisdom flow through you into the world. In the same way, you are connected to your children and your friends, no matter the physical distance. Your well-being affects their well-being, and theirs affects yours. This insight does not erase the real sadness of physical absence, but it transforms it. Grief becomes less about an absolute end and more about recognizing a new, more subtle form of continuation. The heart finds peace in the knowledge that it is part of a vast, unbreakable web of connection. There is a magnificent ancient image from Buddhist cosmology that illustrates this reality. It is called Indra's net. In the heavenly realm of the god Indra, there hangs a cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, brilliant, multifaceted jewel. Because the net is infinite, the number of jewels is also infinite. The most wondrous quality of this net is that if you look closely at the polished surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire net. And within each of those reflections, you will see all the other jewels reflected again, and so on, into infinity. Each of us is one of these jewels. We are unique, yet we contain and reflect every other being. Our existence is defined by the existence of all others. When we begin to truly live from this understanding, our entire perspective on life shifts. It becomes the foundation for a natural and effortless ethics. When you know that you interact with the person in front of you, it becomes impossible to intentionally harm them without harming yourself. When you know you interact with the trees, the water, and the air, caring for the environment is no longer a political issue. It is a simple act of self-care. It is tending to your own larger body. And it is this profound feeling of being woven into the fabric of life that can radically change how we relate to the most intimate part of our world, our own physical body, as it moves through the natural and sometimes challenging process of aging. This insight helps us to see our body not as an isolated machine that is breaking down, but as a precious manifestation of the entire cosmos, a part of the great dance of life, deserving of our utmost kindness and care. The profound insight of interbeing has shown us that we are not isolated islands, but are deeply woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Our body, this precious human form, is not a separate object we own, but a temporary and sacred manifestation of the sun, the earth, the sky, and all our ancestors. And yet, living in a culture that worships youth and sees aging as a kind of failure, we often find ourselves at war with the very vessel that carries us through life. We look in the mirror and see wrinkles and grey hair, not as signs of a life lived, but as enemies to be conquered. We feel a new ache or a new limitation and resent our body for betraying us. This internal conflict, this war against our own physical reality, is a source of immense and unnecessary suffering. The path of wisdom invites us to lay down our arms, to call a truce, and to begin the gentle and radical practice of making friends with our changing body. This is not a practice of passive resignation or of simply letting oneself go. It is an active and loving engagement with reality as it is. For decades, this body has been our most faithful and constant companion. It has served us tirelessly. Its heart has beaten billions of times. Its lungs have drawn millions of breaths. Its legs have walked thousands of miles all without our conscious command. It has allowed us to work, to love, to laugh, to experience the boundless beauty of this world. Now, as it moves into the later seasons of its journey, it asks not for our judgment, but for our kindness. The practice begins by shifting our perspective from what the body can no longer do to a deep and abiding gratitude for all that it has done and all that it can still do. Instead of seeing an enemy in the mirror, we can learn to see a dear, old friend who deserves our utmost care and respect. A powerful way to cultivate this friendship is through the practice of the body scan meditation. This is a journey of reconnecting with our physical selves, not with an agenda to fix anything, but with a simple intention of bringing kind awareness to every part of our being. To begin, find a comfortable position, perhaps lying down on your back, with your arms resting at your sides. Allow your eyes to gently close. Take a few deep, settling breaths, and with each exhalation, feel your body growing a little heavier, a little more relaxed. Now, bring the gentle spotlight of your attention all the way down to your feet. Focus on the toes of your right foot. Without wiggling them, just feel whatever sensations are present. You might feel warmth, coolness, tingling, the pressure of a sock, or you may feel nothing at all. Whatever is there is perfectly fine. As you breathe in, imagine your breath traveling all the way down your body to your toes, bringing with it an energy of kindness and acceptance. As you breathe out, let go of any tension you might be holding there. You can even offer a silent word of gratitude. Thank you, feet, for carrying me through this life. Slowly, patiently, allow your attention to move up through your body, to your ankles, your lower legs, your knees. Spend some time at your knees, these complex joints that have worked so hard for so long. Breathe with them, offering them your kindness. Continue up to your thighs, your hips, the whole pelvic region. Then bring your awareness to your abdomen, feeling its gentle rise and fall with each breath. Move up to your chest, your heart center, feeling the steady, faithful rhythm of your heart. Travel down your arms to your hands. Feel the life in your fingertips. These hands that have built, created, held, and comforted. Offer them your gratitude. Move your awareness up to your shoulders, a place where so many of us carry tension. Breathe into any tightness, and with the out-breath, invite it to soften. Finally, bring your attention to your neck, your jaw, your face, your eyes, and the very top of your head. For a few moments, be aware of your entire body as one unified field of sensation, breathing, alive. As you do this practice, you will inevitably encounter areas of pain or discomfort. Our habitual reaction is to tense up around pain, to resist it. The body scan invites a different response. When you arrive at a place of pain, see if you can bring a soft, curious attention to it. Notice its precise qualities. Is it sharp or dull? Hot or cold? Pulsing or steady? Then, breathe with it. Imagine your breath gently surrounding the area, holding it in a spacious, compassionate awareness. This brings us to a crucial distinction: the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the raw, physical sensation, the first arrow that is an unavoidable part of life, especially as we age. Suffering is the second arrow, the one we shoot at ourselves. It is the mental story we layer on top of the pain. This is awful. I can't stand it. It's ruining my life. This mental resistance is what transforms clean, manageable pain into heavy, unbearable suffering. The body scan practice teaches us to experience the first arrow without firing the second. We learn to stay with the raw sensation, moment by moment, without the mental anguish. This can dramatically reduce our overall experience of distress. There is a simple story that illustrates this attitude of wise care. An old fisherman had a wooden boat that had been his companion his entire working life. Together, they had seen calm sunrises and weathered terrifying storms. The boat was far from new. The wood was grey and splintered. The paint was peeling, and it had developed a few small leaks. A wealthy young man saw the fisherman tending to his boat and said, "Old man, your boat is falling apart. Why don't you get rid of that old wreck and buy a modern fiberglass one?" The old fisherman smiled and gently patted the side of his boat. "This boat is not a wreck," he said. "This boat is my friend. It has served me faithfully, and it knows the sea better than any new boat would. I do not curse it for its weathered wood or its leaks. I thank it for its decades of service. I patch its cracks with care. I mend its sails with patience, and I bail out the water it takes on without complaint. Together, we will continue our journey for as long as we can. Our body is this old boat. It is not something to be discarded or cursed when it shows the signs of a long and eventful journey. It is our faithful friend, deserving of our gratitude and our most tender care. We are invited to patch its leaks with kindness, to accept its weathered appearance with grace, and to appreciate the profound wisdom it holds. By befriending our body in this way, we heal a deep and painful division within ourselves. We learn to inhabit our physical form with a sense of peace and gratitude, regardless of its condition. This practice of making peace with the present moment reality of our physical selves is a powerful skill, and it is a skill that we can now apply to another aspect of our experience, where we often hold pain and conflict, the inner landscape of our own life story. Just as we have learned to hold our physical aches with compassion, we must now learn to hold the aches of our memories, the unresolved pains of past regrets, with the same gentle, wise, and healing awareness. Having begun the vital work of making friends with our physical bodies, learning to inhabit them with gratitude and kindness, we now turn this same compassionate awareness to another inner landscape, one that can be just as fraught with pain, the landscape of our past. As we enter the later chapters of our lives, there is a natural and healthy impulse to look back, to reflect on the journey, to take stock of the person we have become. This reflection can be a source of great joy and contentment, but for many of us, it can also stir up the murky waters of regret. We remember words we wish we hadn't said, actions we wish we hadn't taken, paths we wish we had chosen differently. This burden of regret can become incredibly heavy, casting a long, dark shadow over the peace and beauty of our present moments. The practice of wisdom does not ask us to erase our past or pretend our mistakes never happened. It offers us a way to change our relationship to the past, to untangle ourselves from its grip, so that we can finally be free. The first step in this process is to understand the true nature of the past. In the clear light of mindfulness, we can see that the past does not exist. It is not a solid, real place that has any power over us. It is gone. The only place the past exists is in our own minds, as a collection of thoughts, images, and stories that are arising right here in the present moment. When we ruminate on a past mistake, we are not actually in the past. We are in the present, choosing to replay a painful old movie in the cinema of our minds. We watch it again and again, wincing at the same scenes, hoping for a different ending. But the ending is always the same. The only result of this endless replaying is that we experience the original pain, shame, or guilt over and over again, right now. The suffering is not coming from the event that happened 30 years ago. The suffering is happening today, created and sustained by our own obsessive thinking. Once we see this, we can begin to work with these painful memories when they arise. The key is to shift from judgment to compassion, especially for our former self. We often look back at the person we were at 20 or 30 or 50, and we judge that person with the full weight of the wisdom and experience we have gained since then. This is a profoundly unfair trial. The person you were back then was not the person you are today. They did not know what you know now. They were acting from their own level of understanding, their own conditioning, their own unseen pains and fears. They were doing the very best they could with the incomplete set of tools they had at the time. The practice is to try and meet that younger self, not with condemnation, but with a wise and tender understanding. When a memory of a past mistake arises, instead of immediately identifying with the shame, take a step back. See that younger version of you, not as a villain, but as a person who was also struggling. A person who, like all beings, was simply trying to be happy and avoid suffering, even if their strategies for doing so were unskillful or caused harm. See their confusion, see their pain, and from the wiser, more spacious perspective you have now, you can offer that younger self your compassion. You can acknowledge their struggle and offer them the forgiveness you might offer a dear friend who had made a similar mistake. In this act of inner compassion, the hardened knot of regret begins to soften. This leads us to the courageous practice of forgiveness. This happens on two levels. First, there is forgiving others. Many of us carry deep resentments for hurts that were inflicted upon us in the past. To forgive someone does not mean we condone their harmful actions, or that we must re-establish a relationship with them. Forgiveness is not for them, it is for us. It is our personal act of liberation. Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking a cup of poison and waiting for the other person to die. It only harms ourselves, keeping our hearts constricted and our minds trapped in the past. Forgiveness is our choice to put down the poison, to cut the energetic cord that binds us to that painful event, so that we can finally be free to live in the present. Even more challenging, for many of us, is the practice of forgiving ourselves. After we have cultivated a sense of compassion for the younger person who made the mistake, we can take the formal step of offering them our pardon. This can be a quiet, internal ritual. You can say to yourself, "Knowing what I know now, I understand the fear and confusion that led to that action. I have learned from it. I fully and freely forgive myself. I release myself from the burden of this shame." This is not about letting yourself off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It is about letting yourself out of a self-imposed prison of guilt. It is acknowledging that your past mistakes have served their purpose. They have been your teachers, and now you can let them go. There is a timeless Zen story that perfectly illustrates this art of leaving the past behind. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long walking pilgrimage. Their monastic order had very strict rules, one of which was that they were forbidden from making physical contact with a woman. One day, they came to a wide river with a powerful current. On the riverbank stood a beautiful young woman, dressed in fine silks, who was clearly afraid to cross on her own. The junior monk, ever mindful of the rules, immediately averted his gaze and prepared to walk on. The senior monk, however, simply looked at the woman's distress. Without a word, he walked over, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the turbulent river, and gently set her down on the other side. She bowed in gratitude, and the two monks continued their silent journey. For hours, the junior monk walked in a state of silent fury. He was scandalized. He replayed the scene in his mind, over and over. How could he have done that? He is a senior monk. He blatantly broke one of our most sacred vows. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Finally, late in the afternoon, he could contain himself no longer. He burst out at his companion. "I cannot believe what you did back there. You touched a woman. You carried her in your arms. You have violated our precepts and disgraced our order." The senior monk looked at the junior monk with a calm, peaceful expression. "My brother," he said gently, "I left that woman on the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story is a mirror for our own minds. So often, we are like the junior monk. We carry our past hurts, our past mistakes, our past resentments with us for miles and years after they are over. They weigh us down, they sour our mood, they prevent us from seeing the beauty of the path we are on right now. The practice of mindfulness and forgiveness is the practice of learning how to leave the past on the riverbank where it belongs, and to walk on with a light and unburdened heart. By bringing this wise and compassionate attention to our life story, we perform a kind of inner alchemy. We transform the poison of regret into the medicine of wisdom. We see that our mistakes were not failures, but our most potent teachers. We unchain ourselves from the heavy anchor of our history and become fully available to the richness of the present moment. Having made a measure of peace with what has been, we are now far better equipped to face what is yet to come. But just as the mind can be held captive by the ghosts of the past, it can also be paralyzed by the phantoms of the future. The same anxious energy that fuels our regrets is what fuels our fears of what lies ahead. And so our journey now turns from the past to the future, to learn how to meet the great unknown, not with anxiety, but with this same steady, mindful, and courageous presence. Having learned to make peace with the past, releasing the heavy burden of regret, we now turn our attention to the other direction in time that steals our peace, the future. Just as our minds can become snared in the thickets of yesterday, they can also become lost in the mists of tomorrow. As we navigate life beyond 60, these mists can often swirl with specific anxieties, worries about declining health, concerns over financial security, the fear of losing our independence, and the great, ultimate unknown of our own mortality. Our instinct is to try and control this future, to plan for every contingency, to build a fortress against uncertainty. But the path of wisdom shows us that our obsession with the future is the very thing that robs us of the only life we will ever have, the life that is unfolding in this precious present moment. The first step in freeing ourselves from the grip of anxiety is to see the future for what it is, a phantom. The future does not exist. It is a mental concept, a story we tell ourselves, a projection of our hopes and fears that is happening in our minds, right now. We spend countless hours of our present moment energy living in these imagined futures. We rehearse difficult conversations that may never happen. We play out catastrophic scenarios of illness or loss. We create detailed blueprints of how things should go, and then suffer when reality inevitably fails to match our fantasy. Our bodies, unable to distinguish between a real threat and a vividly imagined one, react to these future-oriented thoughts by pumping out stress hormones. We are literally making ourselves sick today with our worries about a tomorrow that has not yet come. The great irony of it all is that the future never arrives. When tomorrow morning comes, it will not be the future. It will simply be another now. When next year arrives, it will arrive as a series of present moments. Our entire life is, and can only ever be, a continuous, flowing stream of nows. The future is a horizon we are always chasing, but never reach. To be perpetually focused on that horizon is to miss the entire journey. It is to miss the beauty of the landscape we are passing through right now, the feeling of the earth beneath our feet in this very step. Our capacity for imagination is one of the great gifts of being human. We can use it to create art, to solve complex problems, to envision a kinder world. But worry is a profound misuse of this incredible gift. Worry is the undisciplined habit of using our creative mental energy exclusively for the production of negative outcomes. It is as if we are masterful film directors with an unlimited budget who choose to make only horror movies in which we ourselves are the star. The act of worrying can feel productive. We think we are working on the problem, but repetitive, anxious thought that goes around in circles is not problem solving. It is just spinning our wheels in the mud of our own anxiety. There is a place for prudent planning, for taking wise and practical steps to care for our future needs. But once the planning is done, our work is to let go and to trust in the unfolding of life. There is a timeless story, often told in Taoist and Zen traditions, that perfectly illustrates the folly of trying to predict and control the future. An old farmer in a remote village had a single horse, which was his most valuable possession. One day, the horse broke through its fence and ran away. The farmer's neighbors all came to offer their condolences. "What terrible luck," they said. "Your only horse is gone." The old farmer simply shrugged and replied, "Maybe." A week later, the horse returned, and it was not alone. It was leading a herd of magnificent wild horses back to the farm. The neighbors were ecstatic. "What incredible good luck," they shouted. "Now you are a rich man." The farmer quietly replied, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown to the ground, and his leg was badly broken. The neighbors again flocked to the farm, shaking their heads. "What awful, terrible luck," they lamented. The farmer, looking at his son's injury, said only, "Maybe." A few weeks later, the emperor's army marched into the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a brutal and distant war, from which few would return. They saw the farmer's son with his broken leg, and they passed him by. The neighbors, their own sons now gone, came to the farmer with tears in their eyes. "You are the luckiest man alive," they said. "Your son was spared." The old farmer looked out at the road, where the army had disappeared, and said, once again, "Maybe." This story reminds us that our human perspective is incredibly limited. We see only a tiny fragment of a vast and complex picture. What appears to be a great misfortune today may be the seed of a great blessing tomorrow. What seems like wonderful luck may lead to unforeseen difficulties. To spend our precious present moment energy worrying about and trying to manipulate a future we cannot possibly predict is a futile and exhausting exercise. The true antidote to our fear of the future is not a better plan or a more detailed prediction. The antidote is to live so fully and completely in the present moment that the future loses its power over us. The best way to prepare for tomorrow is to be entirely here today. If you are fully present with your loved ones now, you build a foundation of connection that will sustain you through any challenge. If you tend to your health with care today, eating well, moving your body, getting enough rest, you are doing everything possible to ensure your well-being tomorrow. Instead of worrying about dying, the practice is to focus on living. Are you truly alive right now? Are you tasting the food you are eating? Are you feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin? Are you truly hearing the words of the person speaking to you? To be fully alive now is the only real preparation for whatever comes next. A powerful practice to cultivate this is to die to each day. As you lie in bed at night, consciously let go of the entire day. Let go of its small triumphs and its minor frustrations. Let go of your worries. Let go of your attachments. Let the day be complete and allow yourself to dissolve into the darkness of rest. In this way, you can be reborn each morning, fresh and new, ready to meet a brand new day, unburdened by the ghosts of yesterday or the phantoms of tomorrow. By learning to ground ourselves this deeply in the now, we stop being a victim of time. We learn to meet the unfolding of our lives with an open-handed curiosity rather than a clenched fist of fear. This profound acceptance of the unknown, of the unpredictable flow of life, and of our own finitude is not a cause for pessimism. In fact, it is the very key that unlocks a new and deeper appreciation for life as it is. When we stop demanding that life be permanent and perfect, we can finally begin to see the profound beauty in its imperfection, its fragility, and its transient nature. This is a special kind of wisdom, a way of seeing that finds beauty in the authentic, the weathered, and the real. It is a wisdom the Japanese call wabi-sabi. Having learned to meet the great unknowns of the past and future with a calm and present mind, we find ourselves more fully inhabiting the world as it is, not as we demand it to be. This acceptance opens our eyes to a new kind of perception, a new way of appreciating beauty. Our modern world is obsessed with an ideal of perfection. We are sold images of flawless skin, symmetrical designs, and lives free of any blemish or sign of wear. We are taught to pursue the new, the shiny, the pristine, and to see age, decay, and imperfection as forms of failure. This relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal is a source of constant anxiety and dissatisfaction. The wisdom traditions of the East, particularly in Japan, offer a powerful and healing antidote to this obsession. It is a worldview, an aesthetic, known as wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is not something that can be easily defined in a single sentence. It is a feeling, an intuition, a gentle appreciation for a beauty that is understated, authentic, and resonant with the truths of nature. The term is composed of two separate words. Wabi originally referred to the quiet solitude of living in nature, far from the bustling center of society. Over time, it came to embody a kind of rustic simplicity, an unadorned and humble elegance. It is the feeling you get from a simple handmade wooden bowl, still showing the marks of the carver's tools. It is a freedom from the need to be opulent, grand, or impressive. Sabi refers to the beauty that comes only with the passage of time. Its literal meaning is closer to withered or rusted. It is the patina of age on an old bronze statue, the soft, worn texture of a beloved piece of fabric, the moss growing on an ancient stone wall. Sabi honors the story that time tells, the visible marks of experience, weathering, and use. Together, wabi-sabi represents a worldview that embraces and finds beauty in the three great realities of life which we have already explored: that nothing is permanent, nothing is perfect, and nothing is ever truly finished. It is the art of appreciating things that are flawed, modest, and unconventional. It is the beauty of a slightly asymmetrical teacup, a faded photograph, a crack in a plaster wall. It is an aesthetic that is deeply connected to the natural world, which is never perfectly symmetrical and is always in a state of flux. To cultivate an eye for wabi-sabi is to find a quiet joy in the authentic rather than the artificial. We can see this principle all around us, once we know what to look for. In Japan, there is a celebrated art form called kintsugi, which means to join with gold. When a cherished piece of pottery breaks, it is not thrown away. Instead, the broken pieces are carefully reassembled, and the cracks are mended with a lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The philosophy behind this is that the object's history of being broken is not something to be hidden or ashamed of. The lines of breakage are seen as a beautiful and integral part of the object's life story, and the gold highlights them, making the piece even more precious and beautiful than it was before it was broken. This is a powerful metaphor for our own lives. Our culture teaches us that the scars on our bodies, the lines on our faces, the grey in our hair are imperfections to be concealed, erased, or fought at every turn. We are told they are signs of decay and a loss of value. The wabi-sabi perspective offers a radical reframing. It sees these marks of time not as flaws, but as our own personal kintsugi. The lines around our eyes are the map of a lifetime of laughter. The scars on our skin are testaments to our survival, to lessons learned, to our resilience. The grey in our hair is a crown of wisdom earned over many decades. These are not signs of failure. They are the honorable marks of a life that has been fully and bravely lived. To embrace wabi-sabi is to finally make peace with our own beautiful, imperfect, and impermanent selves. It is to find a deep and abiding dignity in the authentic story our bodies tell. There is a famous story about the great 16th century tea master, Zen Buddhism, who is credited with perfecting the Japanese tea ceremony and its associated aesthetic. One day, he instructed his son to prepare the garden and the path leading to the tea house for some important guests. The son, wanting to impress his father, worked tirelessly for hours. He trimmed every bush to perfection, straightened every stone on the path, and meticulously swept the ground until not a single fallen leaf or twig remained. The garden was immaculate, a picture of perfect order and cleanliness. Proud of his efforts, he called his father to come and inspect his work. Zen Buddhism walked slowly through the flawless garden, his expression unreadable. He looked at the perfectly raked gravel and the pristine moss. Then, he paused underneath a maple tree, whose leaves were a brilliant crimson. He reached up, took hold of a branch, and gave it a gentle shake. A handful of perfect red leaves fluttered down, scattering themselves naturally and randomly across the manicured ground. The master surveyed the scene, the perfect garden now punctuated by a few scattered, imperfect leaves. "There," he said, with a quiet nod of approval. "Now it is ready. It is more beautiful this way." This story teaches us the essence of wabi-sabi. Man-made perfection can be sterile, cold, and lifeless. True, deep beauty has an element of the natural, the uncontrived, the beautifully imperfect. Those few scattered leaves brought the garden to life, connecting it back to the uncontrollable and authentic beauty of nature. To cultivate a wabi-sabi heart is to learn to appreciate the scattered leaves in our own lives. It means slowing down enough to notice the subtle beauty in ordinary things. It means finding more value in a used, handmade object with a history than in a new, flawless, mass-produced item. It is the profound freedom that comes from letting go of the need for things and for ourselves to be perfect. When we embrace this way of seeing, we are freed from the exhausting, lifelong chase after an impossible ideal. We can relax into the world as it truly is, and into ourselves as we truly are, with all our beautiful cracks and imperfections. When we can learn to find a deep sense of beauty in a weathered stone, a cracked teacup, or a single fallen leaf, our capacity for joy expands 1,000-fold. We no longer need grand events, expensive possessions, or perfect circumstances to feel a sense of contentment and wonder. This opens our hearts and minds to the profound and sustainable happiness that can be found in our next exploration, the radical and liberating art of simplicity. Having learned to find beauty in the imperfect and the weathered through the wisdom of wabi-sabi, we have already begun to untether our hearts from the relentless pursuit of perfection. This shift in perception naturally leads us to reconsider our very definition of happiness. Our culture often portrays happiness as a grand prize, a final destination to be reached after years of striving. It is the dream job, the perfect relationship, the luxurious retirement. We live our lives according to a silent, unconscious contract that reads, "If I achieve this, then I will finally be happy." This way of thinking keeps happiness perpetually in the future, always just beyond our grasp. The path of wisdom invites us to tear up this contract and to discover that true, sustainable happiness is not a destination at all. It is a way of traveling. It is not a treasure to be found at the end of a long quest, but a collection of small, precious jewels that are scattered all along the path, waiting only for us to notice them. For much of our lives, we are trapped on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. We believe a certain achievement or acquisition will bring us lasting contentment. We work hard, we reach the goal, and for a short time, we feel a surge of pleasure. But very quickly, the mind adapts. The new car becomes just the car. The excitement of retirement fades into a new routine. The mind, conditioned to seek, simply sets a new goal, a new if, and we find ourselves running on the treadmill once again, needing more and more stimulation just to feel the same level of satisfaction. For those of us in the later chapters of life, many of the great external destinations have already been reached or are now in the past. To continue seeking happiness in big, new achievements is often a recipe for frustration and a sense of lack. The secret to getting off the treadmill is to realize that the jewels of happiness are not in the distance. They are right here, at our feet. The key that unlocks our ability to see these jewels is the mindfulness we have been cultivating. The simple joys of life are constantly available to us, but they are quiet. They are like a subtle, beautiful melody that is always playing in the background of our lives. But the noise of our own minds, the endless chatter of worrying, planning, and regretting is often so loud that we cannot hear the music. Mindfulness practice is the act of intentionally turning down the volume of that inner noise. When the mind becomes still, even for a moment, we can suddenly hear the beautiful music that has been there all along. We can begin to truly savor the richness of our own simple, direct experience. Take the act of eating a piece of fruit, like an apple. So often, we might eat it while reading or watching television, barely tasting it. But what if you were to give it your full attention? First, you could look at it, noticing its unique shape, its vibrant color, the subtle patterns on its skin. You could feel its coolness and its weight in your hand. Then, as you take the first bite, you can listen to the crisp, explosive sound it makes. You can close your eyes and focus entirely on the taste, the wave of sweetness, the hint of tartness and the texture in your mouth. In these few moments, the simple act of eating an apple is transformed from a mundane act of consumption into a rich, sensual, and deeply joyful experience. This is not a special apple. It is the same apple. The only thing that has changed is the quality of your attention. You can apply this same art of savoring to anything. The feeling of warm sun on your skin, the sound of rain against the window, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the comfortable weight of a blanket. This practice of finding joy in our own experience can be radically expanded through the cultivation of mudita, or sympathetic joy. Mudita is the practice of feeling happy for the happiness of others. It is the direct antidote to the poison of envy and jealousy. Envy arises from a deep-seated belief in scarcity, the idea that happiness is a limited resource, and if someone else has a large piece of it, there is less left over for us. Mudita, on the other hand, is born from a recognition of abundance. It understands that joy is not a zero-sum game. The practice is simple. Whenever you see or hear of the happiness of another, you make a conscious choice to share in it. When you see a young couple laughing, when a neighbor shares news of a grandchild's success, when you see a stranger delighting in the antics of their puppy, you can allow their joy to touch your own heart. You can feel happy for them. When we only rely on our own good fortune for happiness, our opportunities for joy are few and far between. But when we can rejoice in the good fortune of every being we meet, our opportunities for happiness become limitless. We have an infinite supply. There is an ancient story of a powerful king who possessed all the wealth and luxury imaginable. He had magnificent palaces, vast armies, chests overflowing with jewels, and the finest foods from around the world. And yet, he was miserable, plagued by a deep-seated boredom and anxiety. He heard tales of a simple monk who lived in a cave at the edge of his kingdom and who was said to be the most perfectly contented man alive. The king, unable to understand this, went to the monk's cave. He found the monk sitting peacefully, owning nothing but the simple robe he wore and an empty begging bowl. "You have nothing," the king demanded, "yet you are said to be happy. I have everything, and I am miserable. Tell me your secret." The monk smiled gently. "Your Majesty," he replied, "the secret is quite simple. Your unhappiness comes from the fact that you are always trying to acquire more things to satisfy your endless desires. My happiness comes from the opposite direction. I have simplified my desires until there is almost nothing left to want. Because I desire nothing, I already have everything I could ever possibly need. Because I desire nothing, I am in possession of everything." The wisdom of this story is profound. True contentment is not found in the endless process of addition, but in the liberating art of subtraction. It is found in needing less, not in having more. When we can find beauty in the imperfect and a deep and satisfying joy in the simplest moments of our lives, our hearts become incredibly peaceful and resilient. We are no longer pushed and pulled by the frantic need for the next big thing. We have stepped off the treadmill. This state of profound inner balance, where we are no longer thrown off kilter by the pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain, is a sign of deep wisdom. It is a state of being known in the Buddhist tradition as equanimity or upekkha, and it is to this supreme art of letting go that our journey now turns. Our journey of the heart has led us through a landscape of profound cultivation. We have learned to tend to the seed of mindfulness, bringing a clear and gentle awareness to our inner and outer worlds. From this fertile ground, we have cultivated metta, the warm sun of loving kindness, and karuna, the nourishing rain of compassion. We have even learned to rejoice in the light of others through mudita, or sympathetic joy. These three qualities, when practiced together, create a heart that is open, warm, and deeply connected. But for these qualities to be truly stable and boundless, they need a fourth element. They need the vast, deep, and steady earth to hold them. This fourth quality, the crowning jewel of the four divine abodes, is known as upekkha, or equanimity. It is the mind's ability to remain balanced, spacious, and peaceful amidst the unpredictable and ever-changing currents of life. When we first hear the word equanimity, we might mistake it for indifference, apathy, or emotional detachment. We might imagine a cold, distant person who simply does not care about what happens. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. Indifference is a state of contraction, a shutting down of the heart. It is born of ignorance and fear, and it says, "I don't care because it has nothing to do with me." Equanimity is the exact opposite. It is a state of radical openness and profound engagement. It is born from the deep wisdom of connection and impermanence. It is the heart's ability to care deeply, to love fully, and to act compassionately, but without being attached to the outcome. It is the quiet strength that allows us to remain centered and loving, even when life does not go according to our plans. Imagine a great, ancient mountain. It stands majestic and serene. The hot sun beats down upon it. The fierce winds howl against its slopes. The cold rains lash its surface, and gentle snows blanket its peak. The weather is constantly changing, sometimes pleasant, sometimes violent. But through it all, the mountain remains unshaken. It does not complain about the rain or cling to the sunshine. It simply is, steady and present, allowing the weather of the world to pass over it. To cultivate equanimity is to develop a mind like a mountain, a mind that can experience all the changing weather of life, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute, while remaining stable, calm, and rooted in a deep and unwavering peace. This quality of balanced wisdom can transform our most important relationships. Think of the love we have for our children and grandchildren. It is a deep and powerful love, but so often it is mixed with anxiety and attachment. We have our own ideas about how their lives should unfold. We want them to be happy, but often in a way that we define as happiness. We want to protect them from all pain and mistakes. This clinging, this desire to control, becomes a source of worry for us and a burden for them. Equanimity offers a different way to love. It is the ability to love them unconditionally, to offer our guidance and support freely, but to simultaneously release our attachment to the results. It is the wisdom to respect their own journey, to trust that they must find their own way and learn from their own mistakes. It is the serenity that comes from caring deeply, but carrying it lightly. Equanimity is also the art of letting go of control. As we navigate our later years, we are often faced with a loss of control over our health, our environment, and our circumstances. Our lifelong habit is to resist this, to fight against the natural unfolding of things. This struggle is exhausting and futile. Equanimity is the wisdom to clearly see the difference between what we can change and what we cannot. We put our energy into acting skillfully, where we can make a difference, and we learn to gracefully and peacefully accept the things that are beyond our control. we stop fighting with reality. We also learn to let go of the ego's fierce need to always be right. So much of our inner and outer conflict comes from defending our opinions as if they were our very identity. Equanimity allows us to express our views with clarity and kindness, but without the desperate attachment to having others agree with us. It gives us the spaciousness to listen to other perspectives with an open mind and the peace of no longer needing to win every argument. The Buddha told a famous parable to illustrate this supreme art of letting go. He said, "Imagine a person standing on a dangerous and frightening shore, the shore of suffering. They want to get to the other side, the safe shore of liberation. But between the two shores is a great, wide river with no bridge. The person, being wise and resourceful, gathers together logs, branches, and vines, and skillfully builds a simple raft. Using their effort, they paddle the raft across the turbulent water and arrive safely on the other shore." The Buddha then asked his monks, "What would a wise person do now?" Would they say, "This raft has been so very useful to me. It saved my life. I must now hoist it onto my back and carry it with me for the rest of my journey?" The monks replied, "Of course not, Lord. A wise person," the Buddha explained, "would feel a deep sense of gratitude for the raft. They would then pull it onto the shore, leave it there for another traveler to use, and continue their journey onward, light and unencumbered." The teachings themselves, the Buddha said, are like this raft. The practices of mindfulness, compassion, and even equanimity are skillful tools. They are the means we use to cross the river of suffering. They are essential for the journey, but they are not the destination itself. The ultimate goal is freedom, and this includes freedom from attachment to the very practices and concepts that helped us become free. This is the profound heart of letting go. We use the tools with diligence and gratitude, but we don't turn them into a new identity or a rigid dogma to cling to. This is the peace of upekkha. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence of a mind that has found its true center and is no longer thrown into chaos by the winds of change. It is the deep rest that comes from no longer needing life to be any different than it is. This profound balance is not a withdrawal from the world. On the contrary, it is what allows us to engage with the world most fully, most lovingly, and most fearlessly. It is this equanimous heart, this balanced and peaceful mind, that is the ultimate preparation for facing the greatest change of all, the final journey that every one of us must take. It is this heart that can learn to look upon our own mortality, not with terror, but with a serene, open, and accepting curiosity. We have journeyed far. We have learned to sit with our own minds, to befriend our bodies, to make peace with our pasts, and to live in the present without fear of the future. We have cultivated a heart of kindness, compassion, and equanimity. Now, armed with this gentle strength, we turn to face the one topic our culture conspires to ignore, the great mystery that lies at the end of every life, our own mortality. This is not a morbid or depressing subject. In fact, in the light of wisdom, it is the most liberating topic of all, for it is our deep, unexamined fear of death that often prevents us from truly living. By looking at this great change directly, with clarity and courage, we can free ourselves from that fear and live the remainder of our days with an unparalleled sense of purpose, gratitude, and joy. Our fundamental terror of death stems from a profound misunderstanding of who we are. We have been conditioned to believe that we are a separate, solid self, an ego confined within the borders of our skin. We believe that this me had a definite beginning at birth, and therefore it must have a definite, absolute end at death. From this viewpoint, death is seen as the ultimate annihilation, a terrifying cliff edge at which our entire existence simply ceases to be. It is the ultimate loss. But all the wisdom we have cultivated on this path has been showing us that this view of a separate self is an illusion. Let us return to the beautiful teaching of interbeing. Let us look again at the cloud. When a cloud is no longer visible in the sky, has it died? Has it been annihilated? Of course not. It has simply changed its form. It has become the gentle rain falling on a garden, the cool water in a stream, the steam rising from a cup of hot tea, the moisture in our own breath. The cloud has not gone from something to nothing. It has simply transformed. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh calls this the truth of no coming, no going. At birth, we did not come from nothing. We manifested from countless causes and conditions that already existed. Our parents, our ancestors, the sun, the air, the food of the earth. We are a continuation. And at death, we do not go to nothing. We simply let go of this particular form, and we continue in countless other forms. Think of your own continuation. It is not some abstract, philosophical idea. It is a tangible reality. Physically, you continue in your children and your grandchildren. They carry your genes, your features, the sound of your voice, the way you laugh. They are your living, breathing continuation. Energetically, you continue in every single action you have ever performed. Every word of kindness you have ever spoken continues to echo in the heart of the person who received it. And it influences how they, in turn, speak to others. Every garden you have planted continues to grow and give oxygen to the air. Every lesson you have taught, every piece of wisdom you have shared, continues in the minds and actions of those you have touched. Your life force, your unique expression of being, does not simply vanish from the universe. It is woven into the infinite tapestry of interbeing and continues to ripple outward in ways you can scarcely imagine. To understand this is to see that our life is not a brief, isolated flicker, but a wave in a vast and eternal ocean of existence. The wave rises, takes a beautiful and unique form for a time, and then it gently subsides back into the ocean, from which it was never, for a moment, separate. This realization is not meant to be a mere comfort. It is a profound call to responsibility. If we know that our every word and action continues, it inspires us to live in a way that creates beautiful, wholesome continuations. It encourages us to plant seeds of love, kindness, and wisdom in the world, knowing that these seeds will bear fruit long after our particular form has dissolved. This is our true legacy. Many spiritual traditions teach the importance of practicing awareness of death. This does not mean dwelling on death in a morbid or fearful way. It means holding a gentle, realistic understanding that our time in this form is finite and precious. Acknowledging this fact does not make life depressing. It does the opposite. It infuses every moment with a sacred urgency. When we know that our time is limited, we are far less likely to waste it on petty grievances, meaningless distractions, or unresolved conflicts. We are inspired to say what needs to be said, to forgive freely, and to love fully. The instruction to live each day as if it were your last is not a call for hedonistic recklessness. It is a call to live with complete presence. It means that if this were your last day, you would want to spend it appreciating the simple beauty of being alive, connecting with those you love, and ensuring your heart was at peace. To live with an awareness of death is the ultimate motivation to live wisely and well. There is a beautiful story of an old Zen master who was nearing the end of his life. He lay on his mat, breathing peacefully, while his students gathered around him. Many of them were weeping, overcome with sadness at the thought of losing their beloved teacher. The master slowly opened his eyes and looked at them with great tenderness. He motioned to one of his senior students and asked in a weak voice, "Brother, please look out the window at the great maple tree. Tell me, is a fresh green leaf in the heart of springtime a beautiful thing?" The student, trying to control his tears, replied, "Yes, master. A green leaf is very beautiful." The master nodded slightly and asked again, "And in the autumn, when that same leaf has turned a brilliant gold or a fiery crimson, just before it lets go and floats to the ground, is it not also beautiful?" The student, a wave of understanding washing over him, replied, "Yes, master. The autumn leaf is also incredibly beautiful." The old master gave a faint, serene smile. "Then do not weep for me," he whispered. "Do not be sad. My life is not ending. I am simply changing from a green leaf of springtime to a golden leaf of autumn. It is all part of the same beautiful, natural, and wondrous cycle. This is the peace that comes from a life of wisdom. Death is seen not as a terrifying enemy to be fought, but as a natural and graceful transition. It is a letting go, a returning of our elements to the great universe that loaned them to us for this precious lifetime. This profound acceptance, born of wisdom and cultivated through a heart of equanimity, strips away all that is non-essential. It brings us face to face, in the end, with what truly matters. This entire journey from looking at our own suffering, to training the mind and heart, to making peace with our entire life story, has been leading us to this point of serene courage. It has been preparing us to understand the nature of awakening itself, and to realize that this ultimate freedom is not a distant, mythical prize, but a reality that can be touched in this very life, in this very moment. Our long journey through the night, through memory, through the very fabric of being, now brings us to its final and most essential realization. We have spoken of peace, of acceptance, of letting go. Now, we must speak of that word that can seem so distant, so lofty, so unattainable: enlightenment. For many, the word conjures images of a dramatic flash of lightning, a mystical experience on a remote mountaintop, the acquisition of supernatural powers. But the wisdom we have been exploring tonight invites us to a much quieter, more intimate, and infinitely more accessible understanding. True enlightenment, true awakening, is not the addition of something new to you. It is the subtraction of what is not true. It is the final, gentle falling away of the anxieties, the delusions, and the incessant mental chatter that creates suffering. It is not an explosive event, but the simple, profound absence of inner turmoil. It is the peace that remains when the struggle ceases. It is the experience of waking from a long and stressful dream and realizing with immense relief that you are, and have always been, safe in your own bed. The awakening is not the dream's spectacular ending, but the simple, clear-eyed recognition of reality. To sleep in the light of wisdom is to live from this place of recognition, whether your eyes are open or closed. The light is the clarity of your own awareness, the wisdom prajna that sees things as they truly are. The sleep is a state of deep, unwavering restfulness in the heart of that clarity. It means that you are no longer tossed and turned by the nightmares of the mind, the phantoms of past regrets, and the terrifying specters of future anxieties no longer have power over you, because the light of your own present moment awareness reveals them to be just that: shadows, illusions, mental formations without solid substance. To live in this way is to carry a lantern in the darkest night. The darkness is still there, challenges still arise, but you are no longer lost within it. You walk with a steady light, a steady peace that illuminates the path, one step at a time. As we move beyond the age of 60, society often asks, what now? It suggests we must find a new project, a new hobby, a new purpose to fill the void left by career and child rearing. We are encouraged to find an answer to the question of life's meaning. But this wisdom offers a revolutionary alternative. The meaning of your life is not a new answer to be found, or a new project to be started. The meaning of your life is the quality of your own being. The project is you. The purpose is peace. The meaning is found not in what you achieve from this day forward, but in the depth of your presence, in the warmth of your compassion, in the unshakable stillness you cultivate within your own heart, moment by moment by moment. You have spent a lifetime doing. Now is the sacred privilege of simply being. And in that being, you find that you already have everything you have ever been searching for. The light of wisdom is not in some holy book or in a distant temple. It has been shining within you all along. The great tradition of Zen illustrates this entire journey in a series of 10 beautiful, simple images known as the 10 ox herding pictures. In the beginning, the herder is lost in a panic, searching desperately for his ox, which represents his true self, his original nature. This is us, in the beginning, feeling lost, disconnected, seeking something we feel we have lost. Then, he finds the tracks of the ox. He has a clue, a path to follow, much like when we first discover the path of mindfulness. Soon he catches a glimpse of the ox's tail, a first flash of insight, a moment of real connection. Catching the ox is a great struggle. The mind, the ox, is wild, powerful, and untamed. This is the hard work of the practice, the discipline of returning again and again to the present moment. Slowly, through gentle and persistent effort, the herder tames the ox. He can now lead it by a rope. The mind begins to settle. In the next picture, he is riding the ox home, playing a simple tune on his flute. There is no more struggle. He is in harmony with his own mind, moving through the world with a sense of effortless grace. Upon arriving home, the ox is transcended. The herder sits alone, the tool of his practice no longer needed. The concept of a separate mind to be tamed falls away. Then, in the 8th picture, both the ox and the herder disappear. There is only an empty circle. This represents the realization of shunyata, or emptiness. No seeker, no object of seeking, no separate self, just pure, boundless being. The journey then takes another turn. The 9th picture is not an empty circle, but a beautiful image of nature. A blossoming tree, a flowing stream. This is the return to the world as it is, seeing its inherent beauty and perfection, just as it is, before our concepts and labels. And in the final 10th picture, the man, now a sage, returns to the village marketplace. He is barefoot, his clothes are ragged, but his face is filled with joy. He carries a jug of wine. He doesn't preach or teach. He simply shares his joy, his presence, and his laughter with everyone he meets. His very being radiates peace. The whole epic journey was not to escape the world, but to return to it fully, completely, and joyfully. It was to realize the ox was never truly lost. He had only forgotten it was there. This is enlightenment. It is the return to your ordinary life, but with a heart that has found its way home. Tonight, we have walked that ancient path together. We began where so many of us begin, in the early hours, wrestling with a restless mind and the anxieties of a life lived We then turn to face the great truths of existence, the constant flow of impermanence, and the profound illusion of a fixed, separate self. We look directly into the nature of our own suffering, not to despair, but to understand its roots in our own clinging and aversion. And from that understanding, we began to walk the noble path of mindfulness, using the breath as our guide and the present moment as our sanctuary. We learned to tend to our emotions with the gentle care of a gardener, to nourish the seeds of compassion, and to arrive at a place of deep acceptance and release. This has been a journey from a life lived in reaction to the whims of the world, to a life lived proactively from a center of inner strength and peace. The ultimate message is this: serenity is not the absence of storms in your life, but the quiet stillness of your mind at the center of the storm. The meaning of life is not some grand secret to be discovered out there. It is something that is created moment by moment in here. It is forged in the quality of your attention, in the courage of your acceptance, and in the depth of your presence as you live each ordinary, precious moment. You are not a seeker of meaning. You are the creator of it. Let this knowledge settle into you, bringing with it a sense of hope, of profound calm, and of self-possession. You own the most powerful tools in the universe: your breath and your attention. The journey to find meaning after 60 is not a burden to be shouldered. It is a profound privilege. It is the privilege of time, the gift of reflection, and the sacred opportunity to live your remaining years with the deepest wakefulness, peace, and wisdom you have ever known. The search is over. You have arrived.